eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
Yes, they are. What the hell is going on, everybody? Welcome. We're doing the Polarity podcast live today. We are joined by the great Chuck Swindoll Jr. Thank you for being here, man. I really appreciate you offering up your time.
You bet, Josh. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, sir. Yes.
My pleasure. Yeah. It is, why is the world the way that it is? Like, that was the question you kind of posed at the beginning of your documentary. And that's what hooked me in, because that's basically like the whole idea behind this channel is wondering what the hell is going on, because there's no doubt that it's a crazy world. And I think just quickly for anyone who isn't familiar, Chuck did an amazing documentary series that kind of paints a timeline from ancient Babylon to the modern day that kind of explains how the majority of humanity has sort of been captured and enslaved by a minority group that's been performing these human sacrifice, blood rituals in the same way that we're hearing things coming out about the Epstein files, which is why I felt like this is really relevant right now. Talks of gods like Baal and Moloch and all these kind of things. And it seems like over time, this ideology and the dark energy that's being invoked by it has sort of spread like a parasite over our entertainment industry, our government, everything. And there's just like a blatant abandonment of morality through society. So I think anyone with eyes to see is asking, why is the world the way that it is? So again, yeah, I just want to thank you for making that amazing documentary that I think has contributed to waking a lot of people up.
You're welcome, sir. Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome, Josh. It was my pleasure to do it. And yeah, I was happy to present the material. And I'm glad that it's made the impact. You know, I'm glad it's causing people to ask questions and to break out of the shell that we've all been in. So yeah, thank you so much for your support.
For sure, man. And I want to let the audience know as well, like I'm happy to take questions for Chuck at the end with your super chats. But if you put them up through the show, I will save them to the end and we'll kind of hit them in just kind of like a quick fire order then. So let's start off with a quote, actually, another quote that you started your documentary with, which is, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And that you followed that up with, to know anything, I must lose everything. So was there a pivotal moment for you that sort of began to open your eyes to this sort of evil that is spread in the world?
Absolutely. I contracted cancer in 2012, and I had a humongous battle with cancer, and I chose to fight it naturally. I basically avoided all Western doctors like the plague, and I hired a naturopathic doctor, an enzymologist, and a Chinese medicine practitioner. And between those three individuals, I was able to beat cancer. And the most important part was, and this ties into what you just asked, is that cancer is a byproduct of long-term toxin exposure. And as you accumulate toxins in your liver, your kidneys, your spleen, and these organs, these filter organs, as you accumulate toxins, they build up without you even knowing it. Just going about your life, you don't even feel it happening. You don't even know it's happening. And before you know it, those organs have completely filled up with toxins. And for some strange reason, there I was at, in my late 30s, early 40s, contracting cancer, which was a disease typically for later in life. And it was a humongous realization when I sat down with my naturopathic doctor, and she laid out for me the way the whole medical system is set up, and that it wants to keep people sick, not make them better. And so that whole approach is antithetical to human health and human development. And so it was an education being with Danette and sitting across from her and just finding out my basic biology, how my body worked, how my organs worked, and these functions in the body. And that just naturally led into this eye-opening experience of, holy smokes, the authorities that are running the world aren't our friends. They're not on our side. They don't have our interests. They don't care about us. They actually hate us, this kind of thing. And that just really sprung the door open for me to do a lot of self-exploration and really start diving deep into what a human being is, why we're here, what the purpose is of life, and all this kind of stuff. So that was the eye opener. The whole battle with cancer was the major thing. I dabbled in a little bit of psychedelics, which helped also, but cancer has been my greatest teacher. That was my greatest teacher in my life, has been cancer. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting, man. And congratulations for beating that and getting better as well. And I think you also mentioned that, you know, pain and loss, it's kind of like almost a prerequisite to kind of going on that journey. And it's kind of different. It'll appear as something different in different people's lives. But for you, I don't think you explicitly said it in your documentary, but from what I've gathered about your worldview, it seems that you have like a very Gnostic approach to things.
Well, no, I'm not Gnostic, but I do have a very naturalistic, nature-oriented, human-oriented, human-understood approach to the world. My approach sort of combines Zen and alchemy and some of these disciplines that are sort of get your hands dirty and really participating in understanding the world from these other perspectives. And so I really make it a point not to lock into any one belief, because I see us as wonders living in a wonder, and you can't put your fingers or your hands around a wonder. And so it's a bad idea to get locked into one belief system, one approach to the world, because the world isn't like that. It's a multiplicity. It's a wonder. And so you integrate all these different perspectives in order to grasp this larger awareness that's available. And it's within some of the little pieces of all of these different studies and religious disciplines that we've experienced in life. So yeah, I wouldn't say to Gnosticism, but definitely to the human being and to human empathy and compassion. That's really where I'm going to be starting anything. Yeah.
It's interesting. I guess the reason why I asked that is because I guess we can pull it up now just quickly. You sort of built this, I guess, ontology of the darkness in the world, right? Yeah. And it makes me wonder that, you know, for everything that is dark, there must be some kind of equivalent that is light. So I guess that's where I became curious. Like, if this is your ontology of evil, do you have something that is equal to it that is light, or do you have sort of an opposite side of things that paints a better picture as well?
Yeah. Well, I'm a big believer in the power of the human being and the power of awareness and consciousness. And I believe that the human being has an unlimited source. Creativity is one of the strongest, if not the strongest, forces in the universe. It's what creates cities. It's what creates metroplexes. It's what creates society. And we have an incredible power and ability to develop and grow. And so my response to that, a lot of people ask me about that. Like, if you believe in demons and you believe in the devil and Lucifer and all this kind of thing, how can you not believe in this other? And that other is this side of us that has been this hidden potential and energy that has been suppressed, squashed by bad education, bad religion, and all kinds of poisons and toxins in the atmosphere that dumb us down. And so many people are not aware of the power and potential of the human being. And it's my notion that this whole Great Awakening is to instigate that. The Great Awakening isn't a specific plan to save humanity. The Great Awakening is an experience for the human collective to then find out about themselves, find out about the world, and develop outside of the parameters that have been put in place by the authorities. And the Great Awakening is awakening past those egregores that have been put into us by the medical institutions, the governments, the ruling agencies and authorities, the religious institutions. These are what have compressed and harnessed us as far as our potential. And so the human being, as far as I'm concerned, is basically has to develop awareness within themselves to tap that energy. And then that list that you just showed, those can be completely overcome and done with through the agency, through the power of the human collective, the power of love, which is what composes us, the power of compassion and empathy. It's one of the reasons why the controllers have always kept us hating each other and finding racist things to say about each other and doing all these things to harm each other and starting and instigating wars. They're suppressing our development. They're suppressing our growth. They're keeping our consciousness from us through fear, through instigating pain, and like you said earlier, the natural experience of the human being, and they have just really twisted it so that we couldn't get out of the puzzle, the wonder that we're in. So yeah, that's a roundabout way of going about how to answer that question, but that's sort of my response to folks when they ask, you know, if you believe in this one side, what's your other call?
Yeah, it's interesting. And as you were saying that, one thing that kind of sprung to my mind is this idea of like when you gain that awareness, I think, you know, it's sort of infamously known that like once you sort of become so self-aware, it almost becomes in some way like harder to fit into society, or that you just become so aware of all of this sort of immorality, or the fact that so much of the things that are around us are woven with this thread that just feels that has no substance. And I guess that almost in a way kind of proves that like this reality that a lot of people are living is kind of like baseless, like it's not based in truth. And I think that awareness and feeling of no longer fitting in is almost like an evidence of that, like a spiritual evidence of that. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's really true. And when people go through this awakening, when they start to wake up and find out the world is different than what sort of the accepted measures are, it is extremely alienating. It's one of the reasons why people don't like to wake up, is because you start losing connection with your friends because they are thinking differently than you and seeing the world differently than you. And when you start getting these crazy ideas like the world is run by Satanists, it's very alienating and isolating, because that's not the accepted majority. And the accepted majority would reject things like that in the same way that the scientist would reject any kind of notion of God. It's the same revulsion that you get from your friends, your family, the people that you've known most of your life. All of a sudden, just because you start thinking differently and start asking questions, all of a sudden you're ostracized. And that really is sort of the first test. Are you ready? In many ways, I feel like life experience, nature's always sort of knocking on the door, quote unquote, of experience and saying, do you want to go deeper? Do you know, how far do you want to take this? And when you start to open up these doors of conspiracy, that's that initial threshold. And you have to be able to pierce that membrane in order to find out, because you're not going to find out if you stay in the same loops of information in the same echo chambers. You're never going to hear anything different, and it's just going to reinforce your own delusion. And so that's why it's important to start thinking differently and accept the fact that part of my waking up is going to be alienation. That is just the way it's going to be. And I'm going to have to develop new friends, new relationships, new people to interact with, because in order for me to keep growing, you know, I need to surround myself with energies that are vibrating with me, so we grow together, because we're vibratory creatures. And when you're surrounded by these low frequency people that can't see past mainstream media and CNN, that's just holding you down to their own frustrations and their lack of growth. And you have to get away from that. We're energetic creatures. We're affected by what's around us. And you have to take course and action to escape that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. It's tough, for sure.
Yeah, man. And I agree with that massively. And I think there's probably many people in this chat who have experienced that with like close friends or even family members, where, you know, these are people you care about, that you love, that you've had many great experiences with. But when you are around them, you can like feel this thing that is like quite literally like pulling your vibration down, like pulling your energy down. It's almost, it is almost like literally like a vampiric, like it's sucking from you. And it creates this like really tough feeling of like, you know, this is someone I love and care about, but at the same time, being around them is really, really hard. And
because you've never experienced that.
Yeah, for sure, man. And it kind of leads into what I wanted to ask you about, because I know your father is like a well-known evangelical Christian pastor. So I wanted to know, what was that like, kind of developing this worldview for you? I imagine it's quite different to what you were brought up with, and, you know, what's that relationship like?
That's a deep question, Josh. Thank you for asking that. It has been a very difficult journey. My father, yes, he's a very strong and conservative evangelical Christian. He's been that since he was a little boy. And I was raised in that world. I was a very devout, hardcore Christian for 40 years. I became a Christian when I was 4. And I didn't contemplate leaving until I was in my late 30s. And that's all part of the awakening process, is finding that out, that religions are suppression systems. They're not growth systems. They're not developmental systems. That's why they believe the same things they believed 2,000 years ago. There's no spiritual growth there. And so when the first time it ever really came out, and it was the first time that Dad and I sort of met at this space that we both didn't want to go to, but realized that, you know, here we are. And that was after I had beat cancer. He asked me to write a letter for all these people that had been writing into his ministry. He has a ministry called Insight for Living. It's worldwide. It reaches about 60% of the world's population in about 16 languages. So they reach a lot of people. And so all these people were very concerned about my health, obviously, because they like my dad and they appreciate him. And so they care about his kids. That's me. And so they had been writing in saying, how's Chuck, how's Chuck, how's Chuck? And so my folks just finally said to me, hey, you know, would you be willing to just put a letter together for us? And then we can just read that on the air and then everyone can know how you're doing. Well, this letter that I wrote never one time thanked Jesus or Christianity. And so when Dad read it, he came to my office and he sat down in his chair and he looked at me and he said, Chuck, you know, I really appreciate the letter and I appreciate your testimony. And I really look forward to sharing this with people. But I have a really strong concern. And that is that not one time in this letter do you thank Jesus. And I looked down and I took a long breath and I said, well, Dad, that's because Jesus had nothing to do with my healing from cancer. And that just went over like a lead balloon. And that really, he looked at me like, who are you? That strangeness we're talking about, Josh, with this alienation that happened. And my father looked at me like I had never seen him look at me before. Because I think for a moment there, the thought went into his head of, is this my son? Like, who is this that I'm talking to? What is going on? And I think it was that much of a what, you know, WTF moment for him. And the conversation didn't go well. And it's like a lot of us experience when you start to talk to someone about conspiracy theories. We're talking about it and I'm showing him the stuff I'm going through, the emotional states and these factual quote unquote evidences that I'm using to base that statement on. And it's just over his head. He doesn't care. And it's just making him more angry the more we talk about it. It's very much the experience many people have when they start sharing conspiracy theories with people. And so since then, it's been strained. I love him. He loves me. We have much affection for each other. I worked with my father for 15 years, hardcore in Christian ministry work. We officed right next to each other. We went to board meetings together. We determined the directions and directives of the church together. I mean, my dad and I were working hand in hand at this church for 15 years. And this is literally, my tenure hadn't even ended. I was still employed by them when I said that to him. So it was a rough exit. And most people's leaving to these conspiracy ideas are pretty rough, because when you leave the farm, you know, you're walking past the signs that say don't enter, no admittance, you can't leave, and you're disobeying. And so everybody that wants to stay on the farm, you're leaving, and it's just like, WTF, man, like, what the heck is going on? Jesus is Lord. God is your savior. You're a sinner. What the heck is wrong with you? That's the truth. And so when you start walking away from that and having a bigger worldview than what the religion can offer you, it's incongruent with those who are still in the religion. They can't get outside the building to see the landscape you are talking about. They're looking through windows, they're looking through spyglass, and they can't see clearly the wide angle, wide perspective view. And it crushes the relationship, just crushes, because you're standing on two different existential positions and they don't mix. So it's tough, man. And so, yes, it's still to this day is strained, but his health is ailing. So it's hard to communicate with him now as it is. So that's just part of it. But yeah, we still love each other. I love him to death. He'll always be my dad, and I'll always care for him. So that hasn't changed at all.
But that's awesome, man. And I'm grateful for that, because, you know, you hear, I know people personally, and I've heard of other people in my live chat talk about other religions. Specifically, one that seems to come up a lot is like Jehovah's Witness. And this is someone I know personally as well, that when they kind of became of age and felt like the church wasn't for them, that they were completely cut off by their family. Like brothers, sisters, mum, dad will not even talk to their own blood, their own son, because they decided to feel like, the Jehovah's Witness or whatever just didn't resonate with them. And that's devastating, man, that's how deep the brainwashing runs.
Yeah. Dude, I haven't talked to my brother in 15 years, bro. I haven't talked to my brother in 15 years. I talk to my sisters every once in a while. These are people that I talk to all the time back when I lived in Texas and I was in the church. But yeah, Kurt and I, we may not talk again until we see each other at one of my parents' funeral. That's how split the relationship is. And that's really one of the problems with religion, is that it so blinds you from any other reality but what the religion has handed you. You literally cannot see these spaces that your friends, your family are attempting to elucidate to you and show you very clearly. You literally are blind by the dogma, the inculcated facts. And because of that, you can't escape that building. And it really is risky. And that's, like I said earlier, you got to break that threshold. You have to risk leaving the farm, leaving the building, leaving the institution, and thinking for yourself and deciding for yourself the way you naturally were designed as a human being. Because we didn't come here to follow and fall in line. We didn't come here to obey. We didn't come here to take orders. We didn't come here to stand in line. And so because that's the case, you yourself have to go out into the world, take on your own self-responsibility, and find out through your own investigation and your own work, what is the world, what is a human being, and not just listening to what the authorities, the scientists, the doctors, the smart people are supposedly telling you. And that's really so important in this Great Awakening in order to save ourselves, because no one is coming to save us. We save ourselves here through awareness, through consciousness, through learning where the world is broken and participating fully and without any fear into the helping of humanity and the helping of the righting of the world into a high energy being like it once was, because it's been lowered in its frequency. I mean, I think it's now, the Schumann is around 7, and the Earth used to be up in the hundreds, if not thousands, as far as its ringing and its capability. And it's been muted by these evil reptilian Elohim, Khazarian Mafia groups that have destroyed the Earth and humanity. And it's our job now as human beings to rebuild this. That's what we're going to do. We're going to rebuild the Earth. It's going to be humanely oriented. It's going to be oriented to human values, human sovereignty, human rights, these kind of things. This is all where we're going. And we're breaking out of these horrific satanic binds that have kept us from emerging and growing in consciousness and awareness as a society and individuals. That's my conviction. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this stuff. So yeah, that's where I land.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, man, I love it. And you're saying a lot of the things that ring true for me as well. And you said earlier about how, creativity is something special and like an innate special human ability. And it does feel like people who are sort of able to kind of hear that voice and connect with that creative source are kind of becoming this voice of like reason and helping people like awaken to what is going on. And I don't know a lot about it, but I do think that, you hear a lot of artists, big artists say this as well, that like whatever inspiration is, like it's special, like it comes from somewhere special. Like these ideas sometimes just get dropped into our minds that go on to influence and direct and steer humanity in like a positive direction. So yeah, I really do believe and resonate with everything you just said, man. I do want to ask you though, just coming back to, you said your dad was upset that you didn't mention Jesus. Before we move on from that, I want to ask, like, what is your opinion on Jesus? Like, do you think it's not real? Do you think he was a guy that was just trying to teach a good way to live? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think in those times, there were many wise gurus, many wise people who were cluing in to this, what I like to call Christ consciousness within us. It's this awareness, this self-animating, our personality, all these features that none of us chose. We don't choose our favorite food. We don't choose our favorite color. We find these things out. And so that's all part of this etheric existence that is part and parcel to being a human, because we're both spirit and matter. And it's this mind here that amalgamates the two. And so I think that there have been great wise men who have come to this planet, who have been born and who have clued in, like an Alan Watts or Joseph Campbell. They've clued into this deeper sense, this deeper reality, and they spend their life sharing that with others. And how do you put, though, the wonder that we are into words. You know, how do you form into a cognitive means a picture of what you yourself have experienced as you've awakened? And I think that's just simply what these gurus like Jesus have done in the past, is they've been expressing this transformation of consciousness that all of us can achieve. We all can see this deeper sense, this deeper world. It's available to everyone, anywhere. But how do you put that into words? How do you fit that into a picture that someone can cognize? Because some of that also just has to come out of your sensitivity, just seeing the subtle patterns that are there in nature that are telling you, hey, there's a self-organizing going on here. There's a love that's happening here. And you just have to clue in and see it in order to experience it. And so I think that that's what Jesus did. And simply the church came along and they did the only thing they could do to control him, which was to deify him. And by deifying him, you can't question anything he says. You can't question any motivation he has. And since the Bible the Catholic Church gave us the Bible, they simply put the words into his mouth that they wanted the public to hear, because those words couldn't be questioned. This is how you program. So you have an authority that can't be questioned, has God status, and then you communicate to the people, hey, this is what, quote unquote, God said, and you can't question that. So you can't question that you're a sinner. You can't question that there's heaven and hell. You can't question this stuff because it's come from the man. And this is why they did that, so that he would have an ability to speak to people in a way they couldn't resist or discern. You just take it as truth, take it as truth. And since the Catholic Church was writing the Bible, they were the ones who determined everything that basically we know that Jesus said and did. And since we know that the Catholic Church has been corrupt since the beginning, we know then that they have been using these figures and icons and gurus in our past to control us and keep us contained and from growing. It's a very big, complicated, heretical picture. Yeah.
It does make sense to me. And if we look at it logically, like the way you've just explained it, does seem to answer a lot of questions. One thing that people seem to write often in my live chats when we're kind of going on these religious discussions is the fact that Yahweh, or the God of the Old Testament, is Baal. Do you have an answer for that? You there? Oh no, we might have lost him. We may have lost Chuck. Hold on. Standing by. We may have lost Chuck. Hopefully we'll get him back. And we've lost his slideshow presentation that he had for us as well. Okay. Hopefully we get him back soon. I guess this is a good, I was really looking forward to that question too. I guess this is a good time to catch up on a couple of super chats. What do we have here? Okay, we've got a question from Regina. I'll save that one till the end. Corrupt NPC, bro, thank you for gifting a membership. Crypto Kev, Chuck on Josh's show, and the President of the United States, Donnie, announces he's opening the doors to UAP files and projects. I have heard that. I saw that he commented on Obama. He commented on Obama talking about aliens, saying that he might get him out of trouble by declassifying aliens. I mean, bro, it's all a stage. It really seems like it's all a stage. Tempest, oh man, I'm so bad with these names. Tempest1, celebrating 5 months, says, love to everyone in the chat. My soul is humming Josh on fire today. And Donna Marie, you little freak, thank you for becoming a member. He won't reveal it. We'll see. Apparently, he's got a speech planned for July, apparently, according to his daughter-in-law, right? We'll see. We'll see about that. How is the stream quality, by the way, guys? I'm using a different program to normal. And it seems a bit choppy on my end, but I'm hoping it's not coming through that way. Some people say laggy, some people say it's good. Classic. Never ask the chat. Okay, let me see. People are saying he's posted on X. I'm sorry about this, guys. My apologies. I think maybe Chuck got a power out. I think we may have him back though. People are saying he posted. All right, we've got Chuck back here. We'll have to come back to this a little bit later. Let's pull Chuck back in. Welcome back, bro.
So sorry, man. My internet dropped out. Don't know why. Don't have any idea why.
It's all good.
So sorry.
It's all good, dude. It's all good, man. It happens. I was basically just saying that I get a lot of people in my live chat saying that the God in the Old Testament, I guess Yahweh, is actually Baal. So I wanted to know, like, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it is. That's why that God says in the Bible that he loves the smell of burning flesh. That's why he said in Numbers 31, I believe he said it to Moses, that they were to ransack the city and keep the young girls for themselves and slaughter the men. That's pedophilia. And so right there in the Bible, it's showing you that what the real truth is. And this is why Christianity is centered on a human sacrifice. A lot of people don't really realize that, but a human sacrifice is how the Satanist has a relationship and a rapport with the demons and with Lucifer. They use human sacrifice to have that relationship. And it's the same, oddly enough, in Christianity, where you have a human sacrifice, namely Jesus, in order to have a relationship to Yahweh or to God. And so it's the same pattern, and it's so in people's faces that they don't realize that actually they're performing the same ritual to reach the God, which is a human sacrifice is required. And so, yes, that God is Baal. It loves blood, loves human sacrifice, and loves the smell of flesh. And it came out of the Canaanites. Baal was the storm god out of the Canaanites. And so the ancient tribal systems in Canaan, well, back even before then, the ancient human beings, when they were first gathering together, they identified this storm god as Baal. And so they would sacrifice a human being or an animal, some type of ritual to Baal in the wintertime, typically at the winter solstice, so that you would then please Baal, and Baal would come and bring the rains in the springtime. And so human sacrifice, and then the water flow and the burgeoning of spring was all under the umbrella of Baal. And so you can begin to see how these initial images and how Baal came about, how that same kind of notion has carried into relative reality now, whereby they sacrifice to Baal to remain in control, and the fruits of their labors are rewarded for the corruption that they're promoting and promulgating into the earth. And so you just take these spiritual principles as we understand them on sort of this quote unquote good or right side, and then just take the opposite picture, and it applies most often in this Baal, Satan worship, cabal oriented people. It's just everything is anti-human, opposite of everything else. And they like that. They like creating those puzzles in this situation.
Yeah. I mean, I only found out just yesterday or the day before that in the Old Testament, it literally says that like God asked Abraham to sacrifice one of his sons, and that it was like a test of faith, and that at the last second he told him it was just a test of faith. But like, again, I'm not someone who comes from a religious background, so I'm kind of looking into this stuff nowadays with all of everything, you know, with my awareness and everything that I know, and just reading that in itself, it's kind of like, this does not sound like an all-loving God. Like, that's literally breaching into the realm and like tempting child sacrifice. Like it's almost like it's shocking that like this is the book. This is what it says.
Right. That's mind control. That's an initiation rite. that sacrifice and telling him to kill his son, that's an initiation rite so that you convert the ones even harder that are witnessing the ritual. And so you put an icon, a figure into the landscape of history for this group. And you say, this guy was willing to sacrifice his son for this God. Where is your faith? Where is your belief? Kind of a thing, in order to bend the minds and program the tribe. Because you need to understand, these tribes, they're living off of the unity that they exist in. If I'm a little tribe in the Sahara Desert and I'm trying to survive, we all have to think the identical way. We're going after the same enemy. We're using the same tools. We are going after it as a unity, as a group. You can't have dissenters and people saying, you know, I'm not so sure about this Baal thing and this whole human sacrifice gig. You can't have that on these surviving tribes in the middle of the desert. They can't make it. Everyone has to be aligned without any question. And so they would use stories like that to coerce the new members, the new kids, the boys that are 12, 13 years old that are going through initiation rites. They are being programmed into this mindset of, you're going to follow this God and you're going to do everything that he says, period. And when you establish that at puberty, when these guys grow up into adults, they never leave. They'll never leave the tribe. They'll never question. They will go to their grave for that tribe. And this is the same tribalism, the same consuming religious idea that has formed our religions to this day. That's why there's so much fighting between two different people who believe in a different image of God than one another. And you can see how it works. And that's what that stuff's about. It's interesting.
Yeah, it really is. It's woven through so many things. And again, if we just come back to this picture again, one of the things on here that we've got just below the Khazarian Mafia are the Freemasons. And this is a group that I've, talked about a fair bit on my channel. I've looked into, and, it is really fascinating, the Freemasons, because like there's videos of them performing like weird rituals with these obviously religious elements woven through it, where they're kissing the Bible and doing all these weird things. And, from the outside, on a way, it almost does look like, like a formalized version of, like, you could say Gnosticism, where they're kind of like protecting knowledge for those who are sort of ready to arrive at it in their own time and without shoving it in people's faces. And I don't like to say that like all Freemasons are demonic, right? Or it's like a dark thing. But then at the same time, there are so many claims that like at the highest levels, it sort of bottlenecks into something very corrupt and satanic, where you essentially kind of have to like sell your soul. And when I talk about this, I always get so many comments of people saying, you don't understand the Masons, and it's not all like that. And I would like to hope that it isn't, but there is so much kind of pointing in that direction. So I wanted to know, I guess, what you found in your research about the Freemasons and what you think about that sort of bottleneck at the top.
Yeah, from what I understand, Freemasonry, I think, came around 11th, 12th century organized. It comes out of alchemy, from what I understand, and it has layers, levels, just like alchemy. And so like any of these ancient knowledge systems, there is a progression of knowledge that you gather as you go through the system. And each one of those levels is an initiation phase, because these levels of knowledge are so powerful. You become a more and more powerful individual because you are finding out all the things that typical society doesn't know. And so you are raising your awareness in these disciplines that basically supported human culture for thousands of years. And so it's these psychotic groups that basically decided, we're going to take this knowledge, it's the priest class, we're going to take this knowledge for ourselves, and we're going to control and only allow certain people to know this knowledge, because this knowledge is actually so powerful it could come back and destroy us, a lot like what's happening now with what we're finding out. And so back in the old times, or I should say back in that 12th century, 11th century, the Masons formed, and this was basically a secret society of men that had access to this ancient knowledge that the general populace was not allowed to know about. And this is why it's a secret society. And the problem was that Masonic society, which actually came out of a good thing. Alchemy is actually a really great thing. It's a wonderful study. It's a wonderful way to widen your awareness of nature. But they basically took that, the Satanists did, and they pornographied it. They took all that energy and used it not to help bring about a higher society, a higher consciousness society, but to suppress that society and remain in control, not allow the society to have that knowledge, because then society, they won't listen to you anymore. And so as the authorities, they didn't want the general populace to know. And so that's why they came up with these secret societies. And then all of this secrecy that comes into the Khazarian Mafia, the mob mentality where, you know, we got our tight family and ain't nobody else getting in the tight family kind of a thing. And if you leave the family, we're going to freaking kill you idea. Those are the ways that you keep secret societies secret, and you keep those that are in it. Because if you operate in a way that's, hey, we care about your feelings, we care about these empathetic issues, you're not going to be able to hold that sinister group together. So everybody's got to be part of the pedophilia, part of the lies, part of the deception, and fully bought in, just like the ancient tribesmen fighting with their other tribesmen. They're all thinking the same way, towards the same goal, and having the same idea about life. And these are just tribes that have continued to form and shape society. And it's because, Josh, people like us are sharing what that inner truth is, what that deeper knowledge is. The public is waking up, and the public is realizing, oh my God, I've really been held down and kept from developing through this bad, poisonous information that I've been given my whole life. And so, yeah, man, the Masons are real. They're absolutely part of this stuff. Sure thing.
So you would say that, like, what their sort of ideology is really about is the same kind of things we're talking about, like self-discovery, awareness, enlightenment, but they've sort of taken that path and turned it into like a control structure. Is that sort of what you're saying?
Yes, they have taken a system that was meant to liberate, and they have used it to form a giant farm or prison with that knowledge. And so they have twisted the knowledge so that it doesn't liberate, it doesn't free you, but it confines you down. That's why religions blind you from larger worlds than the religion itself. That's the work of Satanism, is to blind the light being. Do not allow the light being to shine their light. And the best way you can do that is by corroding their mind. Then they themselves won't shine their light. They'll be the ones to keep that light from shining. Because essentially, you can't hold the human collective. They have to hold themselves. They have to keep themselves down because they're too powerful. If they know their power, they will leave the structure. They'll leave the matrix. And so the whole idea with the controllers is never let them know their light. Never let them know their identity, their truth. You know what I'm saying? And by doing that, you keep them from ever shining. You keep them from ever growing.
Yeah, it's interesting you use the word matrix because David Icke talks about the same kind of thing. And he also talks about the connection to Saturn, like the Saturn worship. And, you know, you sort of depicted this really well in your documentary that, you know, in Freemasonry, the six-pointed star is prevalent, which also has this connection to like black magic rituals, Aleister Crowley, and also Saturn as well. So if you could you kind of explain why Saturn is significant and sort of what it represents?
Okay. Saturn, because it's the largest solid planet orbiting the sun, is considered the ruler. It has rings around itself, which signify the crown of a king. And so these ancient, remember, all of these concepts come out of ancient man. And so they're looking at these things through, you know, primitive technology, and they're learning about these things through esoteric experiences. And so they're formulating an understanding of the world. And this really gets into alchemy, because alchemy really studies the planets and how we come in as a soul and we vibrate with the planets and resonate with their resonances. And as we pass through these electromagnetic influences, that influences the personality, the characteristics, the likes, the dislikes of that soul being when they incarnate into a human. And so Saturn was this initial planet that is initiating the trajectory as the soul is entering into the solar system to incarnate into a human being. And so Saturn is the ruling planet, the authority. And so Saturn was aligned to, in ancient times, Kronos and Satan in regards to time, because it takes the longest to travel around the sun. And so it rules the time of all the inner planets because it's of a bigger time space. This is where these ideas of rulership, governing, the principal God come from Saturn because of its position and its shape and appearance in the solar system. And since everything comes out of astrotheology, all of these ancient theologies are based on astrology, which form the then laws of the society because we shape our principles by the principles of the universe. That's the way ancient societies work. That's why they worship the constellations and gave the constellations names and gods and events in their life. They're relating the individual to the energies that form the universe. And so this all ties into these ancient philosophies and ways of understanding who we are and what we are in. And so Saturn is identified as this ruler. And so Saturn controls everything. It's the strongest planet. It's the authority. And so therefore it judges. It's the final say. And so it was aligned to these ancient gods and aligned to Satan in the sense of this is the ruling material world. Saturn is this material planet, the material world, and it is the ruler. Satan, Lucifer is the ruler. These two things are united in their metaphorical content and meaning. That's the whole reason for metaphors, is to help you perceive and understand these spiritual bodies and energies without words, through creativity and the picturing in your mind. And so that's why these whole ideologies have been developed from these hierarchical systems that come out of our planetary system. And so, yeah, Saturn was aligned to that. And that's why, again, you're sacrificing to this God because you want this God to be happy. And so by giving life, giving energy, giving blood to this God in ancient societies, they saw that as a good thing to do. We revere this God. We are giving ourselves, our bodies, to this God. This is, again, ancient primitive understanding. And it was just simply the Satanists that came in and took that ritual that they were using for non-satanic purposes and made it satanic and made it into the evil that it is. And so that's how the world has been twisted. All of these ancient traditions have been twisted so that we no longer grow. We stay confined in these low frequency, low energy ideas of life and ourselves. And it's really crippling. And it's through awareness that we escape that, through learning, through talks like this, Josh, that we all learn that isn't the truth. Yeah.
So you don't think that Saturn is like inherently like a negative thing, but it has been sort of twisted and made to become that. And that's how it's worshipped, in a negative way. Yeah. So if Saturn represents time and the law, I would assume that the other planets coming inward towards Earth also play their own role and have some other kind of thing that they represent.
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious what they are, if you know, but also it makes me wonder, if Earth is also a planet and we're not the center of the universe, does our planet also represent something? Like, do we have an energy that we are perhaps giving back to other planets? I mean, you may not know the answer to that. I'm just kind of spitballing the things that I think about when I'm listening to you talk.
These are great questions, man. Okay, so the original, yes, the Earth is, the point of the Earth is to transform. The Earth is a nursery, okay? Think of the Earth as a nursery. It's my impression. I subscribe to the idea that for tens of millions of years, actually, the Earth was a nursery. And what would happen is souls would come, young souls, new souls that are coming out of the pleroma, that are coming out of the wonder, out of the wellspring that is the universe, the void, however you want to term that, the ether. But as souls are transmuting into bodies here, the Earth was a facilitator for that experience, so that a spiritual body could have, or a spiritual spirit could have a bodily experience, could have a tangible bodily experience in matter. And so that's a beautiful thing. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. That's a good thing. That's experience, that's knowledge, that's growth. And so the Earth was here to help facilitate a young soul's moving into and understanding larger and larger and larger spheres of reality of which they exist, which we exist. We just are in this meat sack to experience material reality. And so the Earth's original intent was to foster this. And what happened was, as we've looked at some of this conspiracy stuff, there was some type of battle, and the quote unquote ownership or rulership of the world was turned over to low frequency beings rather than high frequency beings, because we generate, as human beings, we generate this fruit called Loosh. Loosh is spiritual fruit, and it can be positive and it can be negative. Just like you can make basically any experience in your life into a positive or negative thing. And this is one of the beauties of being a human being, is we can do this. We're of such high consciousness that we can have an experience and we can shape and form it simply with our mind. And one of the things that comes out of us, say when we're at like a rock concert or a really heavy, very carefree and high religious experience, you're exuding this energy. You're in the rhythm with the group. Everybody's singing the same song. You're dancing the same beat. And this is exuding Loosh. Loosh is coming out of it, and it's good. It's positive energy. It's the energy you and I experience when we're in that crowd. We're like, yeah, dude, I totally am into this. This is awesome. It's because you're feeding and sensing the Loosh that's also creating Loosh in you, and you're a part of this wellspring of happiness that's coming out of this society, out of this situation, this concert. Okay, Loosh can also be made evil. If I'm negative, if I'm frightened and terrified, I'm now exuding energy, electromagnetic energy that's low frequency, that's filled with terror and fear. And so my vibration has not been accentuated, but it's been lowered by the ritual. That's the purpose of a satanic ritual. You are to attract low frequency beings, low frequency energy, lower the frequency of everyone in the room, lower the frequency with low frequency symbols. They are lowering the frequency to invite negative energy into the space to commune with that negative energy. And so because we as human beings have this incredible ability to generate Loosh that is extremely attractive to both negative energy creatures and high energy creatures. And when the Earth was transformed from this high energy exuding planet of high resonant frequency that all the high energy beings like aeons are joining in with and experiencing with the human collective, which is beautiful, all of that was destroyed with this low frequency energy that took over the planet, lowered the Schumann frequency, changed the DNA to lower the capacity of all the human beings. And we know they did that with the second chromosome. And the purpose of that was to keep us from realizing that potential we used to, keep us low frequency, and then they can feed off the fruit of our low frequency called Loosh. They can feed off of that in the wars, in the terrorizing of children, in people's financial problems, in people's homelessness, in people's starvation, in the negative events that are happening in the world. They're eating and feeding this, which is why the entire world is filled with war and corruption and hate. It's because these demons, these entities, are feeding off of this Loosh that is coming out of society like mad. And this is why they love war. They love racism and fighting each other and hating one another. It's because they're feeding off of that. It's a real thing. And so that's what the purpose of the Earth was this transformative sphere. Mercury is a communicating planet. It's the closest to the sun. So the sun, which is exuding knowledge, light, wisdom, Mercury's the first to hear it, be exposed to it. So Mercury's a communicator. Anyone, like I'm a Gemini, I'm a Mercury. Mercury is my principal planet. I'm a communicator. That's where my resonation really goes well. And so if I fill my life communicating and experiencing sort of the quote unquote Gemini life, I will be in my resonance, which is why it's important to find out what your ruling planet is, what your ruling celestial body is. This is your natural innate energy. And if you start putting your creativity and development into that space, you will blossom. You'll become unstoppable. And this is what the controllers never want for us. They never want us to realize these kind of things, because then we won't be able to be managed. Does
Yeah,
that
dude,
answer
it's
the stuff you're asking? I'm sorry, dude.
yeah, no, dude, it does, and I'm loving the tangents because you're creating more questions and roads that I want to go down, and I was only saying this the other day on the stream that like it's the sun. I mean, people used to worship the sun, right? The sun seems like the only kind of, I'm not saying we should all go worship the sun, but it does seem like it is it's the physical representation of like life. Like without it we just wouldn't exist. It's there exuding this energy. It's this giant like plasma that's ejecting energy, and it's interesting to hear the way you're explaining it. Like there is this sort of ontology, like this hierarchy of planets that this energy runs through. Like it starts at the sun, it ejects, it runs through these planets. And if we maybe talk about like that energy maybe having some kind of relation to like consciousness or sentience or life, it's almost like each of those planets are playing a role in like that consciousness's journey, and we're just here on, you know, sort of at the almost the halfway stage in where we're learning about like the physical, and perhaps eventually we will move on. These are just the things that kind of make like a logical sense if we're to go down the road of astrology to me, but it's something that I've never really studied too much, but I am very interested in it. And I think when we talk about Loosh, I feel like Loosh is one of those things that people often are like, oh, that's very conspiracy, you know, it's very like in the adrenochrome kind of realm. But you know, I think if we simplify it, we can all feel it. Like, you know, when you walk into a room where like two people have just had like an argument, like you can feel it. You can feel that tension, like that energy. Or if you flip it the other way around, like if two people are having an amazing time, you walk into a room, you can feel that the vibes are high and that the energy is good. So, you know, when you use those examples, the idea of Loosh doesn't sound so crazy. And it's interesting as well that you spoke about how like low vibration is used to commune with these sort of like dark entities, these darker spirits of a low vibration. I guess you could say that a high vibration, then, if people are able to lift their energy to a high point, you're able to then commune with something positive and powerful as well.
Yeah. And that's what you experience when you like go to a great concert, or you're listening to a beautiful instrumentalist, or you go and watch a painter paint a painting. You are taking part in the higher resonant frequency that actually is what animates us in the universe. And we are very sensitive to that. That's why human beings in the universe are such unique and incredibly important beings, because we really do well. We're right here in material reality experiencing it, but we're so sensitive to that spiritual side, and we really can have both. We have the ability to experience both the material world and the spiritual world fully. We have that capacity. I mean, if you think about a lot of the spirits that have been influencing the world don't even have that capacity, because they're not in a material reality. They're a shapeshifter. They're a spirit. They're not actually in a physical form. And we actually have a physical form that we can experience and take joy in. We smell things, taste things, feel things, right? And then we have this creative capacity, which doesn't fit into any words. And both of these things are as readily available as opening and closing my hand. And so this is beautiful. And so in many ways, the sun is an emulation of that same light within us. So the sun, as you know, it brings light to the world. It casts no shadow, and it brings life. So, and its energy also causes the rains to fall. It causes all the electromagnetic twisting and turning that's going on to hold our planet in its place so that we can have life, so that we can have a sustained suspension that will be able to allow life to exist and form and grow and have memory. And so the sun is a central role in all of life. And that's why they called it the son of God in Egypt, Ra. That's God's son. And you can see how the Catholic Church just took that exact same line out of Egypt and put it in the Bible and said, this is God's son. And they took the metaphor of Jesus, who's the son, and they flipped that metaphor into S-O-N. And so it's one of those things where you can see how we've been manipulated. You can see how all these beautiful concepts, like the sun, like being the light, like wisdom and so forth, have been twisted in order to keep us from really seeing the deeper truth. And that deeper truth is, and this is the wild one, Josh, and what we're studying Zen right now in my work, is that you and I are shining the sun right now, in the sense of That which animates me and that which animates you also animates the sun. These energies are one and the same. That which energizes nature and complexifies nature are the same energies that complexify you as a nature creature. And so we have simply lost touch with these understandings that were purposefully hidden from us so we would never grow out of the framework that they put us into. And so, yeah, Josh, in my nature series, I talk about all the planets. I talk about their energies and manifestations and how they affect us and why these astrologers and so forth know what they're talking about. They are familiar with those energies. That is what is forming you as a baby when you're in mommy's womb. It's the energies that mommy is in that are forming you inside her womb. And those energies are from the planets, from the sun, from the earth, from the environment that mom is in. And these shape you as a person, and you become that environment. And so it's important to know these energies and be familiar with them. And the ones that you resonate with, like with me, with Gemini, learn about Gemini for me. Learn about it. Explore those energies, because those will be natural to me. And I can use those to better myself and accentuate my artistic ability to reach others. Yeah. And so, dude, there's that is a deep, deep well to go into, and it's fantastic to study for sure.
Yeah, I think, and that ties back to, I guess, discovering who you are, which is, I guess, the big positive question at the start of the documentary. Interestingly, I was just saying to my stream the other day that I found out that, talking about frequencies in the womb, I found out that my mom used to play Led Zeppelin through headphones and put it over her stomach when I was in the womb. So I feel like that probably... I feel like that probably has a lot to do with my trajectory as well. And also, you said you had a nature series, which is probably important to mention, that you do a lot of other work as well on your channel. So I'll make sure I leave a link to it below, and people can go check out a bunch of your other stuff as well. I wanted to go down a bit of a different road that didn't get covered in your documentaries, though. And a lot of the Khazarian Mafia revolves around like Talmudic Judaism and black magic. The Nazis were obviously against Jewish Talmudic ideology, but also they were very famously fascinated with the occult and like performing black magic rituals in the Valesburg Castle. So it's almost like a bit conflicting in a way that they were so opposed, but at the same time they were apparently doing a lot of the same things. So I was curious how you think the Nazis fit into all of this.
Well, the power is real. That's the thing, is that this power is real. You can unite yourself with evil energy. You absolutely can. And you can take on and have their power. I mean, if you look at the level of corruption that we're now seeing in all of our officials, like they all are in on it, and it is incredibly corrupt. And the reason for it's being so corrupt is they are maximizing the energy for themselves. And so by getting as corrupt as what can't even be fathomed corrupt, all you're doing is gathering more energy for yourself and allowing yourself to have greater and greater power, because this world has been ruled by evil agencies. And so that really has been what has been happening, because it's real. And so the Nazis tied in it. They knew this. They knew that this power was real. They knew that this stuff could be used not for good, but for evil. It could just as easily be switched to evil as it could be switched to good. Just like a person. A person can go from good to bad, I mean, overnight. And so it's the same kind of thing with this energy. And so it's my understanding that the Nazis came out of basically the Bolshevik society, which is the society of controlling people, communism that controls the society by not allowing the society to think for themselves, not allow them to vote, never allow them to have any kind of development, and keeping them suppressed. And this whole communistic idea is what carried us all the way through the 20th century, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, all these things. These things were all undergirded by this consternating type of approach they had for the different nation states, and promoting war and saying these people hate us. We've got to go, be friends with them, but hate them. And that all that crap, again, it's all part of, and here's the bigger concept. the lowering of the Loosh, the lowering of the frequency of the planet so that it stays oppressive and human beings never escape from it. And so Nazism, the Bolsheviks, the KM, these are just societies that have attempted to keep themselves in control and authority. And it's just that the KM have done the most effective job because they have been the most hidden. I mean, most people don't even know that they exist. How many people know of the Gray Pope? How many people know of the Black Pope? Most people have never heard of these individuals, yet they have been around for quite some time. And this is the key to the KMs not being known by anyone, is that this abject secrecy that keeps them from being known by anyone. And if you talk about them, as you've seen and I've seen, they suicide you. I mean, if you bring this stuff out in the open, they suicide you. And so that's why you never hear about this stuff, and it is so hidden, and you have to work at it to find this information.
Yeah, you just mentioned in there the Black Pope, or I think you said the Grey Pope as well, which is in this little hierarchy here, just above the KM. I actually don't know about the Black Pope. Are you able to give us a little crash course on what that's about?
Yeah, he's the ruler. He's the head of the Jesuits. He tells the Pope what to do. The Pope answers to the Black Pope. The Black Pope is the one that's ruling this thing, and this is one of the most sinister, darkest people. I mean, the rituals that you are required to go through in order to achieve that position, you can't even fathom. But that's really who is running the Catholic Church. That's really who's behind the Catholic Church, is the Black Pope. That's the one who is meeting with that Jesuit principles, and they carry out the nefarious dealings that are going on. They basically, it's like the CIA. They determine the future because they're the ones who do the events. They're the ones who are putting in the oppression, going after the attacks, assassinating, destroying the laws, destroying people's lives. They're initiating. They're the initiators. The Jesuits are the initiators. The Pope is the initiator. They put into the world the narrative that the world is going to follow because of their authoritative position. And so you coerce the world to behave. So you cause there to be conflicts. You leak information to nation states to make them hate someone else, to cause that war, to foment it. That's why they knew about 9/11 way back in the 60s. It's because they're initiators. They put that into motion. This is the role of the priest. The priest is the initiator of the society. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to catch you on that because I'd never heard about that. Knowing about 9/11 in the 60s, what is that in reference to?
Well, when they killed JFK, right, that was all part of, that's the Khazarian Mafia. The Khazarian Mafia, okay, so the Khazarian Mafia runs the CIA. They run NASA. When Project Paperclip happened, they took all of the doctors, the ones that were in charge, that were doing the mutilations and the testing on human beings. I've gone through that in some of my lectures. The worst ones like Mengele, the worst ones were brought out and put directly into the CIA, the NASA, all of the governing institutions that are running the undergirding of the American corporate government or national government. And so all of those, this is how you get Nazis and communists directly into a quote unquote democratic country like the USA. You just usher them in with paperclip. And then they took the knowledge that they gathered from oppressing people, torturing them, and they found out this is the best way to get people into alternate mind states so that they can be programmed. That was all studied in the Nazism. They found that out. And then they implemented that through like advertising, through the MK Ultra programming. They just basically took all this Nazi knowledge from the war and started doing that on innocent people and civilians that they would pick up there in San Francisco, and they would bring them in and drug them with a massive doses of LSD, and then they would brainwash them. And I've done studies on that. I just haven't released that information yet because I got banned. So.
No, I think that in itself, like the whole Operation Paperclip thing, is just such, like, in my opinion, it's almost evidence that like our history is a lie, because it just doesn't make any logical sense that we would go to war against these people who are painted as just like the absolute axis of evil, and then directly place them into, not just bring them into the country, but place them into some of the highest positions of like influence, power, government, all these kind of things. And then you've got this character called Michael Aquino. Do you know much about him?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, he was in the army.
So
yeah, it's critical.
yeah, the head of psychological warfare,
Yes.
lieutenant colonel, and an open, blatant Satanist who speaks about performing a black magic ritual in the Valesburg Castle in Germany. So now it's like it's not just in Germany anymore. It's now Americans in the United States military openly being Satanists, openly talking about performing black magic rituals. And this is sort of in the height of like Cold War era, you know, then and then apparently, you know, within like a decade of all of this sort of happening, we apparently went to the moon. You know, like there's just this, seems like there's this time in our history where, like you said, they discovered the best way to like manipulate the mind, coerce a population and control them. And it seems like in that post World War II era, the moon landing, the whole moon landing mission was like a big part of that, like a big sort of false morale boost of the people. What do you think about that? Because obviously that was led by Werner von Braun, like a big Nazi scientist.
Yeah, I think it was all propaganda. And I think that at that time, the CIA was realizing and implementing the amount of power that they had over people, that it works. That you put people of authority in front of the general public and you get the media to support and endorse what that authority is saying. The public will believe anything. And so, especially at that time, I mean, think about that time, there was no internet. There's no way for anyone to get this alternate information. There just was no access. And so basically you, like I said, these are instigators of the theater that is the history, that is our world that we live. It's a theater. And they simply are pulling strings behind the scenes, much like a Soros, putting money into things behind the scenes, hiring people that are unknown and putting in agendas that are hidden below altruistic ideas, literally, so that people have no idea that the Red Cross is actually a money and child collection agency. They have no clue. They think that the Red Cross is actually a beneficial institution that's here to help society and help people. And they have no idea that that society has been completely taken. And so that is the common thing that happens constantly in our world. And what was the other question you had? You had a question, though, specifically I wanted to get to. Do you remember?
I think the main one was just sort of about the moon. The moon. Do you think we went to the moon?
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe. I don't think so. It doesn't ring that we did. I think what they did is they had a plan to go. And they also had the whole movie thing they did. They filmed the landing. You know, we've seen all the fake movie and stuff. We've seen all that stuff. So we know they did that. We know that was all part of it. It's hard for me to believe now with the trouble. Like if you look at the trouble that Musk has had in getting his rocketry program going, he's got it going good now. He's doing a great job. But we saw how many missiles are destroyed, and they continue to still destroy, just to be able to get this thing up and running. And we're expected to believe in 1960s technology with a computer that's smaller than an iPhone ran this behemoth of a spaceship all the way to the moon on the first shot without one mistake. I mean, that alone on the face of it is like, I can't believe, there's no way I can believe a story like that. So I think in many ways, and this is the really sad part, man. I think the astronauts, I think a lot of the people that were involved in that were all mind programmed. They were given memories of being on the moon. They were given memories of orbiting. They were programmed with these memories, just like the MK Ultra, where they program conversations, they program events into the person that never happened. But when that person comes back out of the hallucinogenic illusion they're in, they'll think that memory's real, and they will go to their graves saying it's real. Like, that happened to me, man. And they have no idea that it was programmed. And I really think those astronauts, 3 astronauts that went up there, were all just mind programmed. I think they were put in the MK Ultra program. And that's why they're so convicted. That's why when you ask them, did you go to the moon? Like, they will fight you in anger to say, yes, I did go to the moon. And I think it's because they are that convicted in their memory of it, because the programming is that good. It really is that good. I've studied it. I know that it's that good. And so, yeah, I think a lot of that is PSYOP. The United States wanted to stay in control. They couldn't fail, going to the moon, because then that would have made them quote unquote less than the terrible Russians at that time. And so that Cold War thing's going on. And so when JFK was killed, it's because JFK said he was going to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces, 10,000 pieces, and spread it over there, like destroy it. And so, like I said, the CIA was in charge at that time. And when you've got an insubordinate like JFK who says, I'm not going to go along with what you CIA idiots are talking about, well, they're going to kill him. And that's when you knew they had full power. Because if you can go ahead and assassinate an American president in-house, you're running the system. You're running the system. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. And so, yes, they knew about 9/11. That's why the $20 bill, if you fold it a certain way, it will fold into the buildings burning. And that stuff was drawn decades ago. Those bills were drawn out. And you can actually do that with the dollar bill or with the $20 bill. So, yes, they knew about 9/11. Yes, it was planned. Yes, that's been orchestrated for a long time, because there's this plan to, as you know, the 16-part plan to destroy America, which was kaput when the vote cheats that they set up for Hillary weren't enough. I've heard dialogues where behind the scenes they were having conversations and they thought they had the correct percentage for how many they were going to cheat to give Hillary the victory, and it wasn't enough. And so when the final votes came through, there was enough votes for Trump to overcome her cheating, and he got in. But she was supposed to go in. She was supposed to win that. And to me, that was one of the moments when humanity said, no, we're going to use our free will vote. No, we're not going to keep going. And this is what we have got to do as we awaken. We have to start seeing their plans, seeing what they're doing, and not going along with it, not agreeing to it and just letting it go on, but actually resisting and going against these authorities, because that's the only way we're going to instigate change. And so, yeah, they've known about that assassination for a long time, because they've been planning on taking over the world since the beginning.
Yeah, I think one of JFK's speeches that I played in a video recently is super telling as well, where he doesn't really say, he doesn't talk about the Khazarian Mafia, but he talks about like an imminent threat that is not like out in the open and brazen, but it is subversive, it is through secret societies, and it is basically corrupting the nation from within. Like he said a lot of these things in a very sort of clever way that probably at the time, it feels like people would have thought he was talking about like Russia or something like that. But I think when we look back now with what we know and what happened to him, I think it kind of paints a very different picture. And just on the astronauts as well, quickly, I think everyone, even people who do believe we went to the moon, I think even those people, when they watch that press conference of those 3 astronauts, like after they got back from the moon, and this is meant to be 3 people who have just achieved the most amazing feature of mankind. They've gone further than any man ever went, and still to this day has ever gone. And they genuinely look like hostages. They look like they are holding a horrible burden. And, you can't deny that. And I think that also comes back to like, in a way like Loosh, the energy that people exude, we can read that, we can feel that, even when it's through a screen, because we're looking at like body language, micro expressions, all of these things kind of are like variables in a formula. And that formula, we can kind of read and feel the answer, the equation. And I think undoubtedly these people are hiding something, or something just doesn't add up correctly. I don't know if you know a guy called Bill Tompkins. Do you know Bill Tompkins? William Tompkins?
Yes, I do. I know Bill. I know his face. I can picture his face in my head. Yes.
Yeah. So he passed away a few years ago now, but he was a World War II era like naval intelligence officer. And he says, and that there's interviews of him in his last years, and he's talking about how we did actually go to the moon. But on the moon, there were reptilian beings. There were reptilian beings there, and we basically learned that like the moon is occupied, we're not welcome there, and that the people who are ruling throughout Earth are already set up and established there. And again, like let's come back to this this hierarchy here. You've got reptoids up in this structure, up the top, very high up, next to fallen angels, the Watchers. Things that we hear about in the Book of Enoch. So I wanted to ask you, like, do you believe that these reptilian beings are like physical, or are they spiritual? What are your thoughts on that?
I think they're spiritual. I think they're metaphysical. I think they're in
Mhm.
and out. I think they're shifters. I think they're multidimensional. I think they can pass through densities. Um, I think that they are part and parcel of the influencing that's been going on this planet. And I think that to those who have seen them, I mean, that would be really difficult to digest and live within your life, having witnessed and been around something like that. So I have great empathy and compassion for people like David who have really experienced these things. Um, I think they're even so advanced that they could appear one way to you in the same room and be different to me. Like I'd be looking at it and saying, okay, dude, this is what I see. And then you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, bro, I'm not seeing that at all. I think they can do that. I think they can change based on your perception, because as you know, the world becomes, as you look at it, it manifests. And so I think they're operating in that same vein. And I think when it comes to like Thompson, when he said we've been to the moon and there were reptilians there, I'll tell you something. I don't think just Saturn V was the attempt. I think that we've been going there for a while in other ships. I think that it's very possible that the stuff that they've been developing down in Antarctica could very well have gone to the moon. And so I think that Thompson might be getting some of those memories from interacting with the moon and some of those things that have happened that are pure conspiracy. Like there's no way I could ever prove any of that to you. I'm just saying that guys like that, it would make a lot of sense with the stories. They say that there's that alternate technology.
Yeah, there are theories like that, because obviously this moon landing mission happened sort of late 60s, but then there's this whole sort of strong argument that the Americans cracked anti-gravity like a decade prior to that. And a lot of people do actually argue that we have been using these ships to go out beyond Earth into outer space. Even a guy from he was like a colonel in the Air Force. His name was Wendell Stevens. He talks about in the 80s how the this strategic defense initiative project was actually like a cover to start bringing these like disc-like fleets into outer Earth orbit to like patrol. And that, all of this stuff has kind of been happening for a long time, but the moon landing mission was just kind of like a cover-up story to kind of pretend this is how far we are so far, but really under the hood we're miles ahead. And obviously, like you said, there's no way to prove that, but there's some good arguments out there. Absolutely,
there are, and we go ahead, but we know how those electrogravitic machines work. I mean, there's patents on that stuff. I mean, we've had that for a while now. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it certainly seems like that. And also, just touching on like what you were saying with the reptilians and perception manipulation. This is something that a lot of ufologists, specifically Linda Moulton Howe, who's been studying this stuff for a long, long time, she's spoken a lot about how these reptilian beings, it's not that they actually shapeshift, but they actually have the ability to manipulate how you perceive them, which would make total sense with what you're saying.
Yeah,
and I wanted to pull this up here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now you can go ahead if you like, and we can touch on this after.
No. I was like when I had mentioned that just momentarily ago, how the like the double split test, the material matter, when you look into a room or whatever, it is your perception and awareness that collapses that room into that shape and form that you're in. That happens as you navigate. So it does. The theory is that when the Zen Buddhists say that everything is empty, emptiness is form, form is emptiness. That's this idea that everything is illusory, and it simply manifests as your conscious awareness has it manifest. But yeah, like you said, for the reptilian, he could, because they're able to get straight into your mind and communicate telepathically and manipulate, and that's in your head. They can make you see them in any way they wish. I mean, they can shape whatever shape. It's like your creativity and your dreams. Like anything goes. It's the same thing here.
Yeah, man. And I fully understand how like this could sound wild to some people, and I agree. Like it's mind bending. But then, like at the same time, you've got these. You might be familiar with David Icke's interview with Credo Motwa, who is this Zulu shaman, and this is in like the 90s, and he's talking about how thousands of years ago these reptilian beings enslaved the people of Africa, and this is before social media. He's not doing it for like likes or clout or trying to sell a book. His role as the shaman is basically like the preserver of knowledge to then relay it down to his people. And this is just a story that's been told for time immemorial, and it just lines up with so many other stories that are perhaps told through different lenses, but when you look at them objectively, they all have a lot of the same themes. And even also, like, you know, the Native Americans, they talk about like the Wendigo, which is like the people who would shapeshift were basically products of like those who would consume human flesh. And once you do this, once you become like a cannibal, you basically lose your soul, and you kind of create this like insatiable hunger for more, and it kind of dehumanizes you. And these are like what they called like the Wendigo and the Skinwalkers. Like there's just so many parallels. It's absolutely wild, man. But I want to ask you about this, because this is some illustrations here of reptilian beings, but I'm most interested in the one on the bottom right, because in your documentary you spoke about our chakras and you know, how they work, what they mean, and this is a picture of a reptilian entity that is attached to a person through their second and third chakra, which is the sacral and the solar plexus chakra. So it's interesting to see this, and I'm wondering if it aligns with your understanding, because it kind of, if we're to talk about like lower vibrations, I guess it makes sense that, like, you know, you've got your lower chakras, this is where they kind of connect through. So like, is there, first of all, does this align with your understanding of them? And also, like, do the chakras kind of represent dimensions or levels of frequency as well?
So I learned about the chakras from a Chinese medicine doctor who had about 30 years of experience. And so I will try and convey some of what he conveyed to me, but I'm sure his knowledge is pretty incredible. So the chakras are energy centers, and they are tied into your organ systems. Your organ systems are the conflict systems in your body that work to keep you alive and do what's necessary to keep you going. So your vitality, your vital organs are tied into your chakras. Now, your chakras are vibration centers. They're frequency-oriented centers. And as you move up the chakras from, there are 7 of them, as you move up from the base chakra, which is located right below the scrotum in men and right between the legs, right at the base of the body, this is the area of the coccyx, the lower portion of the spine that has the curve. That's all the lower, I believe it's called the Muladhara. And this is the grim avidity, the gripping to life, the holding to life for simply being alive, not because of a reason, not because of any type of thing you want, but just gripping to life, to stay alive for the sake of being alive. That's what that chakra is. And so that's its concern. Its concern is your preservation and making sure that you're still around. And then obviously the second sacral is your procreation. This is the continuance of the divine ability to create eternity. I mean, mom and dad create an eternal being. And so the sacral chakra has incredible amount of power in that we're every day, or people every day, are creating eternal beings. And then that third chakra, these lower 3 chakras are concerned about the material world, the material existence, power projection. This third chakra, power projection, this is pushing my will, my desires, my wants into the world. Your psychopaths that are, you know, mass controllers that want to control everybody, they have a huge solar plexus chakra. The reason that picture shows the animal or the reptilian grabbing the guy at the sacral and then at the solar plexus locations of those chakras is because this is how you're going to materially control this man, through power and authority and money, the solar plexus, and then through sexual addiction, sexual experiences, the orgasm, and the pleasure of life. These 2 means are what are going to motivate this individual. So if I'm going to entrance and suppress this individual, those 2 chakras are what I'm going to go for, because that's where all the addiction, the power projection, and they haven't reached the heart yet, because the heart is the transformer of the lower 3 chakras. That's your crux point. All energies shift when they pass through the heart. This is where compassion comes from. This is where your love for one another and empathy comes from. That is your heart chakra. It is how you relate and sensitize yourself to others. And so moving up, and then we get into the voice chakra, and then the eyes, and then the third eye. These are just simply the upper spiritual experiences that we have as a human being. So if you were to look at, say, a cross, an ancient cross, you have this vertical line, which is your spiritual experience, and then you have the horizontal line, which is your material experience. And right in the center, that crux, that point of tension, is your mind. So your mind has to coalesce with these energies in such a way that you grow and become and help others and grow yourself and become this ultimate human being that you have the potential to be. And all of that starts with the chakras. And so meditation, what we're doing in that is we are resonating the chakras, starting at the lower frequency and then moving mentally up, pulling that energy up through the chakras, and then finally reaching the crown chakra, so that there is the alignment, obviously, with the ether, with the great unknown, with the unspeakable. And so chakras are major central players to that. And this is why those that hate us, the archons, the reptilians, attack us at the, that's why you see them holding in those, because those things know this is how I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him through his own desires and wants, and then through his sexual energy and the pleasure of the orgasm. And I will capture this individual. And that's why they're doing that. It's the lower chakras also. Those are lower frequency, easier to penetrate than the upper.
And it makes so much sense. And it answers that question again from the start of the show. Why is the world the way that it is? Because I think so many of those things that come from the second and third chakra that you've mentioned, like the sexual, the desires, the addictions, all of these things, like, it's wild that these are the things that are like championed through our technology and through our media. Like, you know, it at some point, this is a conscious decision, and you have to ask why. And it makes sense, because you can be controlled. And then also, like you said, once you ascend above that to the heart, you've got love and compassion and joy. These things are not really championed. These things are not promoted. We're not taught how to reach these kind of places, which it's just like, why would that be? And the only answer that kind of makes sense is basically your documentary, everything that we've gone through here. So it also makes me wonder as well, like, given that this goes up to the third chakra, like, is there any kind of connection there to, you know, people often talk about how we live in like third density, or like we're three-dimensional beings, and that, like, you know, we want to ascend to higher dimensions, higher realms. Like, is that the same as the chakras? Like, we're stuck in third density because that's sort of what we're gripped and tied to? Is that the same thing?
It's related. Think of existence like an onion. There are layers to it. And so you and I both know that there's a layer past this physical body. You know, we know that. We know that there is a sense of life past the body. And so that's the higher frequency stuff. That's the stuff that we're getting into a different density, where the material world is a specific density, spirit is density. And so you can move through these different densities depending on your resonant frequency. And that's part of the role of the chakras, is that. And what folks don't know is the chakras are also tied into all of your meridians, the meridian system, which is your wiring. And that's what the practitioner, when they put the stainless steel pins with acupuncture, what you're doing is you are tying into, through the stainless steel pins directly into your meridian, you're tying into the electromagnetics, literally, of the earth, which are healing. And so the resonant frequencies pass through the stainless steel pins, which catch that frequency and put it directly into, literally, into your chakras. And when I had my treatments, he took all my pain away. Like the guy, without any drugs, without my having to do anything mentally, he just said, lay still and just be calm and relax. And he would put all these pins in me, and literally my pain would just dissolve. Like I would feel like where I had cancer, all the pain would just completely go away for hours. And that's just simply getting to those chakras and resonating and ringing them. They have incredible amount of power, especially with awareness with your upper chakras. You start resonating those are the people that are having out-of-body experiences. They're able to travel through all different types of universes, and they're able to get into other people's heads. It's because they are accessing those frequencies. We're vibratory creatures. We work on vibration. And when you as a master learn to resonate those frequencies within yourself, this is called power. I mean, this is power in the material world, for real, and the spiritual world. Yeah, it's incredible.
That's so fascinating, man. And for anyone who maybe tuned in a little bit late and missed the beginning, what you're talking about there is you healed your cancer through was it ancient Chinese medicine? Is that what it was?
Ancient Chinese medicine, plant oils, essential oils, a lot of coffee enemas, which turn on the immune system. If you don't know what that is, it turns on your immune system. It releases an enzyme into your bloodstream called glutathione S-transferase that eats cancer cells, and it increases 700% every single time you do an enema therapy. That's why the Gerson therapy heals people of liver cancer all the time. They heal non-healable cancers all the time at the Gerson therapy, and it's because they're doing these coffee enemas. That's why you can't find a Gerson therapy in the United States, because the United States kicked them out because they were healing so many people of cancer. And the United States medical system can't be having people healing from cancer because that's their enterprise.
That's bad for business.
Better.
Yeah, that's bad for business, man. One last thing here. So I guess I want to touch on that. Just one thing here is like what I find interesting about this is Reptilian is obviously a really weird thing for a lot of people, and I get that. But I think what's interesting here is like what we might call a reptilian today looks so much like what people used to call like a demon, or like what we might say is like a reptilian attachment. Some people might say is like a demonic possession. And I think these, like, neither of them, like they both just kind of act like a label in a way that represents something that I think is very real, and that is like this kind of negative attachment, spiritual attachment that some people get. So I guess I wanted to ask you, like, what is your advice for someone who feels like there is something like a darkness within them, something that is kind of like holding them back, tying them down? Is like your answer to that meditation? Like, do you think that is the way through?
Yeah, meditation and good psychotherapy. And then also finding some type of skill or hobby that you like doing, or, you know, writing, playing music, painting, something that gets you into the creative centers and gets you into the growing emergent centers that are the powers within you. And then obviously the counseling to help with the mental stagnancy. And the purpose of meditation is the process of release. The reason a person is staying in that low frequency is because they're holding to whatever it is that is attracting that low frequency. We're attractors, we're vibrators. We that's how we work. And so when you're vibrating at a low frequency, meaning you're holding to things, you're going to attract more of that. It doesn't work whereby, you know, it will be the opposite. No, like attracts like here. And so if I'm a mean person and a hater and all that stuff, I'm going to attract hatred and mean things back at me because that's what I'm putting out. And so a person is really depressed, feeling bad all the time, and they say, Chuck, I'm not holding on to anything. I'm just depressed. I feel horrible all the time. It's because there are energies within you that you have to access that you're not seeing clearly. Meditation, self-searching, and the process of release will help you reach those spaces. But it's something you have to work at. You can't just take a pill. You can't just do an exercise. I'm healed. If you've got depression you've been dealing with for 2 decades, it ain't going to be over in 2 days. It's going to take years or months to get over that because you have had it for so long. And like I said earlier, with toxins and getting cancer, I got cancer because of accumulation of toxins. And it's the same thing with depression. I'm like, stay depressed. Well, eventually the depression itself is keeping me in depression. And so a person must release from these things. And that's the space of peace. I mean, it's exactly what we're doing in my Zen series right now, is helping people self-heal, helping people know who they are so that they can escape the KM, the evil that has been pounding into us for so long. And so, yeah, that would be my response, because every single person has it in them. You have it in you. All the power is in you. You've been lied to that you don't have enough, that you need some doctor, some priest, some religion, and then you're okay. That's a lie. You have everything in you that you need. There's no need to seek externally for anything. It's all that power is in you. It's just seeing it and then walking into that space and doing it. And that's a process. It takes time to get to that space, but we'll get there. We're doing it little by little.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude, that's so powerful. That's really awesome. And it reminded me of a saying that expression is the opposite of depression. And while you were saying that, it kind of gave me this visualization of like meditation, like if we're to imagine like, you know, the polarity of depression and enlightenment, and there is this kind of like energy flowing on this spectrum back and forth, it feels like meditation almost acts like the opening of the gate, like it frees the passage to allow that energy to move. And I feel like once you've freed that passage, following the hobbies, using creativity and like expressing yourself, like doing the things that find you joy and get you into that flow state, it's almost like once you've opened the gate through meditation, pursuing the hobby is what begins to push that energy back away from the depression side. And that really hits home for me, because I feel like I felt that.
One of the greatest things I ever heard Joe Campbell say, Joe Campbell's one of my heroes, and he said, you know, whenever you're feeling down or depressed or anything like that, he said, one of the things that I always encourage is for people to just listen to whatever music they want. So if you like my wife loves 80s music. There's very few people that loves 80s music, but my wife loves 80s music. And his thing was, if you like 80s music, if you like the 60s, heck, if you like 1930s music, twanger music, listen to it as loud as you can and have a great time, and don't care what any people think, because there's a reason you like that music. That's your body saying, I resonate with that. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I dig that music. And if you saturate yourself in that which you love, your frequency raises. How many people have you talked to that have said they just listened to a song that meant a lot to them, or something that they hadn't heard in a long time, and just their spirit lifted, and they just, for no reason at all, just started feeling better? That's what's happening. And so engage that. It doesn't matter if it's dumb, stupid, or any of that kind of stuff. Go for it. Shamelessly, just go for it and listen to whatever you want. If you like getting dressed up weird, do it. Have fun and raise that vibration inside of you. And like you said, Josh, find your hobbies, find what you love, find your arts, do them. I mean, that's the person that's going to undepress themselves, is finding that which they love and then saturating themselves in that, because that's only going to raise their frequency. I mean, they can't help it. They love what they're doing. So yeah, man, that's a great technique. It's a great technique for sure. Yeah,
for sure. And I love that you brought up music too, because it was literally only a couple of days ago on my live stream, I was saying to people, like, you know, back before we were just so connected to the digital world all over the place, I feel like an active thing that I would do would just be listen to music. Like that's what I would be doing. Whereas like now it's almost like listening to music is like a side thing that we do while we're on the internet, or while we're at the gym, while we're doing things. But when we actually take time to just like listen to music and like feel it and let it flow through us with some good headphones or some good speakers, like, dude, it is like uplifting, like you said, especially if it's something that you haven't listened to in a while, or, you know, something that just resonates with you. Like, it makes you feel good, man. It really does. And I think that's something we should all sort of like come back to.
I mean, true that. And remember in the 70s when they would get double albums, I mean, it was an experience listening to the new Beach Boys album. I mean, you got 2 records and you can hear the whole thing. Nowadays, you just get one song at a time. There's no artwork. You don't get your hands on anything. It's all in the digital world. And man, that tangibility has been lost with music, and that's tragic. I mean, I remember when I was little in the 60s, and I would open up these albums. I'm like, wow, you know, look at the artwork, and the music is playing, and I'm seeing the turntable turn, and I'm hearing the static, and I'm seeing the native. I mean, this is all sensorial stuff that's important to experience, to pull yourself out of the drudgery that so often fills life. I mean, like you said, you got to be active. So yeah, man, I think the digital age has really hurt that aspect, because music, you really had to kind of work for it. You know, there was a whole preparation, and now it's just click, click, and it's there. Whereas before, you had to go to a certain room with a certain turntable, a certain setup, you know, it all had to be prepared. And so, man, for sure. Catharsis. Yeah, for sure.
It is nice to see vinyl is sort of making a little bit of a comeback. So hopefully that continues to happen. Yeah. All right, let's go. One thing I wanted to ask you from watching the documentary is, you mentioned that, you know, these old gods, specifically Moloch, which I understand is represented as a bull. And you said at Bohemian Grove, they use an owl and they worship it as an owl. And you did explain why the owl is sort of symbolic to them doing that. But I wanted to know, how did you come to that understanding? Like, how do you know that they turned the owl into Moloch specifically?
That came out of all of my exploration with the testimonies of the sexual or the satanic abuse ritual survivors. SRAs, Satanic Ritual Abuse Survivors. Yeah. And I got that information from some of the work of Jay Parker. There's another one too. Kathy O'Brien is another survivor that talks about it. There's another one, and I can't remember her name, but in their testimonies, they would talk about Bohemian Grove. And I actually incorrectly in the video said that they did not carry out live human sacrifice. They actually do. I thought they were mock ceremonies, but they're actually carrying out actual sacrificing of people. They used to. I don't know if those Bohemian Groves are still going on. I know the area is still cut off and you can't get in there. It's all guarded off still, I think. But I don't know, because of so much exposure and so many people know now what they're doing, if they could get away with that, if enough people locally would uprise, you know, to keep that from happening. But it was going on. And the owl, it represents wisdom. The owl ties into Lucifer in the sense of wisdom, in the sense of knowing and cunningness. And so the owl hunts at night, and it's quiet and it's cunning in how it goes about its practice. And these black magicians, black magic magicians, are the same cut from the cloth, the same idea. You are in the undercurrent. You're not seen. You're very smart. You know what you're doing. You're not acting frivolously. You know what you're doing, and you have purpose in your action. This is what the owl represents: refinement, dignity. The owl's not doing all kinds of dances and poses and stuff. I mean, it's very serious, and it's constantly observing and seeing its environment. And these are attributes and characteristics that a Satanist wants to have. And so the owl emulates that well. So it emulates well the characteristics they also like in themselves as a group. That's why that owl is there.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And what I find interesting as well is that I don't know how much you've looked into sort of the UFO phenomenon and contact experiences, but the owl is also very symbolic there as well, that a lot of people have weird interactions with owls, and some people link them to gray aliens themselves. And you know what a gray alien actually is a whole other discussion. But yeah, it's a very interesting symbol.
Yeah, I don't think it's inherently bad. I think they've accentuated negativity with it, but I don't think an owl is negatively bad. Is necessarily bad. I think an owl is a very inspirational creature.
Yeah, I would agree with that, absolutely. Yeah. But the attributes make a lot of sense with the symbolism and you know what it's all about. I guess given that, is there anything else, like, because I guess we're 2-3 years down the track now from you when you actually made these documentaries. Is there anything you wish you could change about them, or you wished you put into them, I guess, given where we are today with what's come out with Epstein and everything else?
Yeah, the two things that I wish or wanted to include was details in regards to the Phoenicians and details in regards to Persia. And understanding that these are part and parcel to the development of the Khazarian Mafia. I just was short on time, but if you want, I can. They got erased when I dropped out. So let me get the file that I had shown you here. This one.
Yeah, let me pull that up for you.
There we are. Yeah, there. Okay. So what I wanted people to see just before this slide, let's see here. This one, where is it? Here, this here. Okay. Just to go over very quickly, I know we've been here a long time and I know people are tired. So to just go over really quickly, a lot of folks, when I expressed the recordings, when I made the recordings, are new to this. And this is radical ideas that are being presented. And so I wanted to give a very quick overview of some points I did not cover in the lecture to clarify. So what I first want you to notice is that the top 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, those are what formed the world as we know it. So to understand why the world is so corrupt, understand that it came out of the Roman Empire, Judea, Babylon, the Pharaohs, and Canaan, and the Vatican. So this can give you a notion of like how it's gotten so bad. I mean, think of how corrupt Rome was. Think of how corrupt the church is. Think of how corrupt Babylon is. Think of the black magic that came out of Pharaonic Egypt, right? Think of the human sacrifice and Baal worship that came out of Canaan, okay? These are the institutions, right, that formed our reality. And in fact, they morphed into the bottom 7, the managers of the world. So who manages the world now? The Templars, the money in Switzerland, the Khazars, the Masons, the Jesuits, the Illuminati, and of course, the New World Order in the United States. And so you can see then, when you ask the question, how did the world get so corrupt? Why am I living in such a evil-oriented place? This is why. These are the people that were making the calls. That's why. And so you can see, if you look here on the left side as you face this, so the Pharaoh, Romans, Templars, Masons, their main concerns right here, the Phoenicians, Baal worship, bankers, money trade, surface enforcers, that's their role here. And on the right is the bloodlines, and their role is more oriented to this blood drinking, body snatching, drugging, and blackmailing people. Whereas your left side here, your money counters are more into the black money magic, greed, usury, and the mercantilism that runs the planet. Understand then, these are the two forces that combine to create the Khazarian Mafia. You have the bloodline of Satan there on the right, and then you have the Phoenician bloodline, the Canaanite bloodline out of Iran there on the left. And these two cultures formalized within about 1,000 years of each other, and as you can see in those states. And if you go down the list, what you then can begin to see, and you guys can take a screenshot of this if you want to have it for later study, but what I've done is I have listed out the dates and the main influences that these groups that are listed on this map and how they implemented the evil that those societies I just told you used to control the world. Okay, and so you can see here the Crusades, those that enforced the law. Sol Invictus, this was the sun god worship that came out of the Roman Empire. The Dark Ages, those that write the law, those are the priests that caused the Dark Ages. The Emperor Titus, who destroyed the Second Temple, and all the money that came out of Babylon, the gold that all these tribes have been collecting worldwide. All look at where they're all going to. The Vatican. The Vatican. Look where the Amun-Ra priests, the powers and authorities, those Amun-Ra priests were as powerful as the Pharaoh themselves. Again, that's the Khazarian Mafia within the Egyptian principalities. And we see where did they go? Right into the Vatican. And that's what I want everyone to see here now and understand. Look how the Vatican is the central hub for both sides, the money and the spiritual, the physical and the spiritual side. And right there, you can see the Vatican, they're the hub. That's how you know they have been corrupt from the very beginning. There's no such thing as a beneficent pope in our past. They don't exist. They were all Satan worshipers, child sacrificers, blood drinkers. Every single one of them. You don't, as the KM, you don't have your leader, the public leader, be anything but the worst of your own kind. Meaning you're not going to put in a pope that's half into the Khazarian Mafia and half into human rights. That's not going to exist. The leadership of this corrupt institution will be one of the most corrupt from that institution. This is why the Pope is led by the Black Pope, an even more evil individual. And I just want it to be clear that the money side, the mercantilism, money magic, the Mediterranean Semite-Levantine order is this whole Phoenician side. Okay, understand that. And then the Amalekites, the blood drinkers that I talked about in part 1 and 2, and that those that became the spiritual impetus for the society, this comes out of Amalekites, the Levant, the bloodline that comes out of Ham and out of the bloodline of Noah and Cain. Okay, this is the bloodline that this side is ruling over. So when you look at Dylan Monroe's artwork here, this is going to help you very quickly, just reading these few little things, cognize and understand exactly why the world is the way that it is. And since you know then that it's going to change, because you would not know this if it wasn't going to change. Part of the reason why we're moving into a humane, partnership-oriented existence and world is because we now, as human beings, are being educated to why the system has been corrupt, so that we can correct those systems so that they are no longer corrupt. That's what I want to present. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Josh. That's what I wanted to say. And folks are free to take pictures of this, use this, and study this, and so forth.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate you filling in the gaps as well. And if you want, send me a copy of those slides, and I'll drop them in my Discord as well if people want to get like the full resolution ones. Yeah. I am conscious of time. You did say, yeah, we have been going for nearly 2 hours, and it's been great. I want to wrap the show up with just getting to some questions from the audience. So there's been some super chats kind of coming in while we've been chatting. So I feel like we should knock these out of the park right now.
Let's do it.
Let me. Okay. Okay. First one from Regina says, question from Ireland to you. What was the most difficult piece of information to accept or even receive to date? How to open the heart chakra to live life better? Kind of a 2-in-1.
I learned a torture technique that is used on blonde-haired, blue-eyed boys. It's a special sacrifice that they do that's more horrific than even some of the stuff that we've heard. When I was 5 years old, I was at a roller rink and I was laced with LSD. Someone gave me LSD. This was 1976. And I would have been trafficked had I fell into it. I almost did. I had someone come up behind me or next to me, put their arm on me and say, hey, you doing okay? You want to come with me? And I now know that it was LSD because I've taken LSD as an adult since then, and it was the same thing. And so learning that they have special rituals for people that look like me was pretty rough. And when I found out what they did, I then knew that's what would have happened to me. That's been one of the hardest things to get over and accept, that was the reality of the world, that everyone, including myself, was being hunted. And when you find out the details of these rituals and what they do to children, you can't get over it. You can't get past it. I encourage anyone, if you have that opportunity, try and pass on it. The details you don't want to know. You don't want to know. And there's no reason to know. But that stuff, the demonic stuff and the ritual stuff has been the hardest thing. The part that has been the best as far as heart chakra and heart vibration and opening the heart is meditation, quiet, peaceful times in nature, grounding into nature. If you have a park anywhere where you can get away from sirens, computers, and anything that's electronic, as far away as you can, if you can go to a place like that, go there every day if you can. Ground in nature, sit still and quietly in nature, and your heart will speak. The heart is not going to try to speak to you when your brain is going crazy and you got all this stress and everything. It's going to get squelched. You have to provide a means and ways for it to speak, much like a child. You get down on your knees and you look them in the eyes and you pay attention to them so that you know them and they know that you can hear them and they'll speak to you. A child speaking is just like the heart speaking, and the heart is the same way. And you're going to have to place it into an environment where you can actually hear it, and you're not going to hear it if you are consumed with the concerns of the day and the concerns of the world. So I would just really encourage you to, get out into nature and experience nature, as well as pursuing that which you love, the artistic side, the hobbies that you're drawn to, the interests, the things. And I don't care what the interest is, no matter what, run after it and have fun with it. Have fun with it, have a good time with it. And this will raise your vibration and open that communication with the heart. Yeah. Great question.
Beautiful words, man. Yeah, and beautiful answer. I really appreciate you sharing that. I wanted to just expand on it quickly, if you can. Do you know what the significance is about blonde hair, blue eyes? Like, what is the obsession there, and why is that targeted specifically?
The thought is that these are the higher energy beings, the Palladians, the if you want to get into this world, the light workers, quote unquote, that are assisting humanity in saving itself. They're not here to save us, but they are here to assist, to help, to lend a helping hand. Just like I'm doing today, you're doing every day, Josh. Just here to lend a helping hand. And so there's a lot of people that, and I subscribe to this, that people, the souls that are here, that are shining light, that are making an influence and helping others awaken, are not from here. And they have come from other parts of the universe to take part in this joyous occasion of the great awakening of the human being. And so these are assets that have been sent here, supposedly, to help people become aware. And so some of the appearances of some of these light workers are blonde hair, blue eyes, and they is similar to this Palladian force that comes out of, I believe it's Orion or the Pleiades. And this is a high frequency energy group that cares about us. And so if you subscribe to that, not everybody does. I'm not saying I do. I'm just saying if you subscribe to that, that's where kind of some of that idea comes from, that this actually is a bigger wonder than what we're experiencing. And in other words, there's more to it than just the surface. It's not just chance genes These are incarnating spirits that have come here to help. And that's why I say when you die, you don't go to the light, you go into the universe. You don't go to the light, because that's the trap. And that's what I say to all light workers, especially you, Josh, because you're clearly a light worker. My suggestion is when you die, that you don't go into the light, that the light is a trap, and that our home is actually very, very far away in the universe. And you have the opportunity to go back there if you wish. If you don't want to recycle in the samsara of the constant recycling, now that we are awakened, we now have the opportunity that we haven't had before, that when you die, you can see that light and choose, I'm not going in that. I'm going to the universe. I'm going home. I'm going to my home planet. I'm going back. That's what I'm thinking. So I'm going to go there, wherever that is. So that's what that's about. Yeah.
Fascinating. Thank you. And yeah, I have heard a lot of people speak the same kind of thing as well. All right, let's keep going. KK Loco says, sorry, off topic. Trump just said he's directing Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, to release all UFO documents. I'm not expecting the truth, but a step in the right direction. Thank you, Josh and Chuck, for your time. All right. Thank you, KK Loco. Crypto Kev says, Chuck on Josh's show and the President Donnie announces he's opening the doors to UAP files and projects. F yeah. Thank you, Crypto Kev. Temper says, love to everyone in the chat. My soul is humming. Josh on fire today. All right. Well, let me find some of these comments. Here we go. Heather wants to know, what do you think of Armin's work, Chuck? Do you know Dr. Armin Hillman?
No. Who's that? No.
Okay. He is a classicist who translates ancient Greek. And basically his idea is that, similar to yours, that the story of the modern Bible has been completely twisted based on what the original texts say in the ancient Greek. But if you're not familiar, it's probably like a bit too much to give you the rundown, but you should check him out. He does some really interesting work.
Nice.
Okay. I'm going to skip through the ones that aren't questions for now.
I can respond to the Trump ones if you want, or if you don't, that's fine.
Sure. If you've got any thoughts on that, go for it, and I'll find the next ones.
I do. So I think we're in a situation where things are being piecemealed out to people on purpose. You can't throw the whole kit and caboodle onto society and expect them to believe you or expect them to stay sane. So you have to normalize them to tougher and tougher and tougher realities. And this is what's happening right now. We're being normalized. We're being prepared for having a tougher and tougher and tougher situational reality being revealed to us. And so the disclosure of UFOs is just another piece. It's just another portion. And they're going to trickle that out, just like they're trickling out the stuff in the Epstein files, because it's all real. It's all true. And so little by little, they're unredacting stuff. They're putting papers out. It's not as fast as people want. It's not as quickly as we wish, but it's a process so that the society doesn't go insane and the society doesn't revolt, so that we can just little by little acclimatize ourselves to the reality of the situation. And then from that knowledge, change, be a part of that change so that we no longer are like that as our society anymore. Change the world. And I think Trump is just a role, a portion, a part of this unfolding process that is underway. But we are the ones who must become aware. We are the ones who must wake up. It's for us to wake up. It's not to save you. It's to awaken you. And if you are ready, if you are prepared, if you're courageous, if you want to learn and grow and be bigger than you are now, then by all means, join in with us, learn new things about the world, start embracing conspiracy, and change your mind, change your position. That's what we need.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And apparently Trump has followed it up on Truth Social with a post saying that he is releasing them due to overwhelming interest. There you go. Good. Let's hope so. Genius says, best stream, best content, awakening inbound. Thank you very much. He also says, open minds and personal exploration. We don't have to believe everything, but an open mind, a desire for truth, the path of personal development and enlightenment, stronger together, but with critical thinking and shared insights. Thank you, Genius. Man. Some good words.
Heck yeah. It's it's our differences that make us stronger. It's important to not agree with everybody, man. It's important to have disagreement, because that's what expands, man. Expanding. So yeah, I wholeheartedly love notes like that with folks that understand that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think it's like coming back to remembering that like having differences is okay. And like you said, it expands your mind, your awareness, and that we should be comfortable with people seeing things differently, because that is reality.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. This is an interesting one. This is from Heidi. She says, I would love to hear Chuck's thoughts on Tartaria and Agartha. Fantastic conversations. Thank you both.
Yeah, I think those worlds were part of this world when it was a nursery, like I mentioned earlier. And I think, like I said, I think the Earth is very old. I think the Earth has been here a long time. And I think that there were incredible amounts of people, souls that came here, and they grew. And Tartaria is a lovely example, high technology, amazing earthen technology. You look at some of their stuff, it's pretty trippy because it's so rich in earth elements and earth characteristics. I love it. And so absolutely, there have been societies and cultures that predate us, absolutely, that were here, in my opinion, for a very long time. In my opinion, for millions and millions of years. And in fact, I think obviously there's been a recycling. Like the surface of the earth, I think, is very different than what it used to be, especially with what's on it, what's been built, what's been done. And it's like anything. It's just your backyard. It changes over time. You do change. You bring in a pool. You take the pool out. You add furniture, whatever. It changes over time. And many times you'll change a backyard so much it won't even be recognizable from what it was before. And I think that in many ways is like the earth. And I think Mars is a hint of this also, in that we've seen artifacts on Mars that clearly, in my opinion, are human. And so I think that a part of what happened with this downfall thing is that part of what happened was that Mars was obliterated with whatever technology these evil forces came in and took over with. And I think that that created the asteroid belt and that, you know, that kind of thing, meaning that the planet that was destroyed, the water planet that was destroyed, created the asteroid belt and affected these other planets. But yeah, heck yeah. I think our history is long and very diverse, for sure.
And any thoughts on Agartha?
So I think it's all part of those worlds. I don't have specific details about Agartha, but I believe that it was there, like Tartaria. I believe these were there. I believe that all that stuff happened. It's just that everything's been changed and buried and manipulated.
All right. Thanks, man. The next one's from KK Loco. Chuck, couple questions about the source of our woes. One, is the demiurge Satan an individual entity or legion? Two, have you had personal encounters with reptilians / archons or know others who have? Thank you both for this.
Thankfully, no, I've never interacted with a reptilian. What was the first question?
First question was, is the demiurge / Satan an individual entity or legion?
It really kind of depends on what side of the bed you get on when it comes to energies. I think that that's just another name for this evil darkness that is part and parcel for existence. Like, for instance, I think when they have a satanic ritual, depending on how experienced the satanic priest is, how good they are and how well they know their work, will determine what is going to come in. And the more advanced you are, the more diabolical the spirit you will attract. And so I think it's of a similar notion with this kind of stuff. And with Leviathan and what's the Gnostic word for that? The demiurge. I think that is just simply another name for these energies. For these energies that they're not fully material. Their spirit, they change shape and shift, and so putting that into words and trying to finally define it, I don't think you can. I just think that those are just like costumes or labels for this same type of energy that is permeating the space, because there's as much evil as there is good. These energy, there's equal amounts, there's equal portions, and it's just that our Earth has been set up to attract negative, and that has to change with the human collective, and we will. But as far as those names of those gods and stuff, I think those are just costume names. I think it's all essentially the same energy, just manifesting in different identities in the same way we are God manifesting in different bodies. It's the same kind of idea.
All right. Thanks, man. The next one is they say, sorry if this has been talked already, just got here. I think Moloch is greater as a threat than Baal. It extends to Bohemian Grove, the bomb, etc. So not so much of a question, but I guess I'll ask, do you believe there is like some kind of hierarchy between the two, or are these just kind of like equal little g gods, entities?
Yeah, little bit different. They're tribal gods. So Moloch was Babylon's main god. So he's bigger god than Baal, because they're not going to worship a lesser god. They're going to worship the big god. So in their mind, that was Moloch, and that he's a warring god, killing god, sacrificial god, right along the lines of Babylon. Same with Baal. It's a nature tribe. They're oriented to nature values, and so they're sacrificing to nature gods, namely Baal, the storm god. And so again, these are just tribal minds coming up with ideas of hierarchy to rule their society. And they just simply give them names and costumes for whatever's going to rule. That's why Ra, a sun god, an Egyptian looking god, is the god for Egypt. That's why the Christ god in Christianity is Jesus. These are the costumes that these different gods and spiritual powers of those societies, that's the identity that those societies have given them, so that you can talk about it, so that you can have a conversation about it. Because otherwise, how are you going to talk about a spiritual thing like that? So, yeah.
Yeah, dude, that actually just reminded me of something I wanted to touch on quickly. That like this, like the worship of Moloch with the sacrifice of children. One thing that's interesting is like how much truth there seems to be in fiction, and because this story is basically told in Game of Thrones, right? I don't know if you've seen it, but like they have this Scarlet Woman, this red priestess, and she's referred to as the Scarlet Woman in the show, which is literally what apparently the point of Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard when they were doing the Babylon working ritual. They were trying to invoke this Scarlet Woman, and she was like this sort of dark energy of chaos, right? And in Game of Thrones, this Scarlet Woman persuades Stannis Baratheon to sacrifice his daughter by burning her, and he does that to gain power, to sort of have a better chance at claiming the throne. And then out of this Scarlet Woman, this priestess, she kind of gives birth to this like dark smoky energy that like comes out of her body and goes in and kills someone else. So it's like they're almost like depicting the same kind of story, and it makes me wonder, like, are they just writing these stories based off like deep mythology research? Are they trying to like desensitize us to it? Like, I don't know, but I am curious just quickly, like, what are your thoughts on the whole idea of like truth disguised as fiction?
Yeah, revelation of the method a little bit. I think absolutely. I think absolutely they use that metaphor because that ties right in with our history. It ties into ancient human experience, tying into these stories, tying into these gods, tying into these ways. It works naturally with people. I mean, look at the Hollywood hits from 1980 to 2000. I mean, these war hits and just the way the whole movie plays out, where you've got this nobody. Think of Star Wars. You got this nobody guy who's just living on the middle of nowhere planet on some moon, but he's got some kind of special calling. And that kid, that kid's got the touch, and he just has to find it out. He just has to figure out, dude, it's in you, brother. And if you just would realize it, you could rule the world. And you see the process of Luke as he travels through these different planets and these different people. He discovers that he has this incredible Jedi master inside of him that's always been there from the very beginning. He just didn't know it. And this is the same story as the person. You're born as a little baby. You don't know what's going on. You're going to be raised in a social system that's going to, define you and so forth. And then finally you're an adult and you start wondering, why the heck am I here? What the heck's going on? Who the heck am I? And you start to find out you have characteristics and qualities that can carry you. And when you begin to integrate those things and bravely introduce those things into your life, you begin to soar, you begin to fly. And it's always been there. It's just, you're just having to see it. And that is the story that they go to. And so when they do this kind of stuff with this gal you're saying, and this moon setting to give birth to that baby, I think it was Hillary Clinton, they've said was the one that was born, that moon baby was born, as one of the conspiracy theories. And so this game is emulating this satanic vision, which is this idea of having this one ruling authority that will finally be born from these horrific, parents. And then that thing, that's like the Antichrist, like that thing is going to be the killer, the one. And so that's another storyline of sort of doom that's in our history that we have been exposed to in past generations. And movie writers know this kind of energy is inside of us. And so they're able to tap into it with these stories. It's like the journey of the hero of Joseph Campbell. If you tap into that journey of the hero story, you're going to awaken many people, because that's the common theme of the human being, which is discovering who you are and then building upon that discovery. And so I think that's why they
Yeah.
do those movies like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you use the Star Wars analogy too, because I've spoken about that as well. That it does feel like it represents real life in a way that like there is this kind of like field that all around us that we all have the ability to kind of connect to, that can kind of lead you to like a path of greatness in the
Yes.
direction of evil or positivity.
Yes.
And also just on the whole, like, you know, you said this is why people write these stories. You know, I wonder though, is it like are some people consciously writing this to kind of drip feed it in front of us and, you know, predictive programming or whatever? Or is some of it like kind of comes back to the idea of, you know, where does inspiration come from? Where do ideas come from? Like, are these sort of ideas drip fed into these brilliantly creative people who are writing movies to then from something higher, like a higher dimension, into these people who have this amazing ability to create, which then gets pushed out to an entire population and seeds these same ideas of like spiritual development, enlightenment, growth. And it's kind of like a self-fulfilling cycle, but kind of starts at the very top and runs down. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. I think both. I think
Mm,
both. I think some movies are used to really down program people, and I think some movies are made to really up program people. You know, really help them expand. I think The Matrix would be
mm,
probably the best example ever of a movie that was to help people expand. That movie clearly was
yeah.
designed to help people see a world past their, you know, the social world, and so absolutely that was used for the good. Whereas, you know, you got programs like Rosemary's Baby, you know, that movie was just pretty low, and other horror movies and so forth that clearly you watch
Mm,
something like that, you're lowering your vibration. You know, if you're watching people getting murdered in this, you know, slaying situation, those movies are obviously desensitizing people and harming people. The endless war games and so forth desensitizes the kids to war and so forth. So yeah, and I do think
yeah.
that's intentional. I think they are preying on people. And I think that's part of the parents' role to try and help curtail some of that stuff as your kid grows up, to not get them too exposed to too much. But yeah, I think it's both, man. I think it's both, because both work. Both work.
All right. Shand Donaldson says, ask Chuck about his uncensored Khazarian Mafia God Eaters #3 on Rumble for those who don't know.
Thank you, Shan. Shan's my buddy. Shan is one of my followers on YouTube, and he comes to my Zoom meetings on Fridays, so it's really great. So, yes,
Awesome.
I have 3 more parts to the Khazarian Mafia. For those that have watched Josh here for the first 2 parts, there actually is a 3A, a 3B, and a 3C, and those are available on Rumble. And I could not put those on YouTube because when I tried to upload those to YouTube, YouTube sent me a special letter I had never received before, because I had been banned before, but this was different. They sent me a special letter and they said, if you ever release any of those movies onto the channel again, your channel will instantaneously be brought down with no hope of recovery. And so they were pretty angry about that, which startled me, because I'm like, why are you letting parts 1 and 2 up there, but you won't let this? Well, I think it might be part of the reason is because I'm dealing with the CIA, mind control, and the purposeful use of hypnotizing the mass public, so to get the mass public to be compliant to their own destruction. And that has been the role of the CIA. And I talk about that. I talk about their origins, how the Khazarian Mafia became the CIA, and why the CIA is oriented to Satanism and carrying out satanic acts like 9/11. And I lay all of that stuff out, and the bloodlines and everything, into the CIA and into these control destroying systems in parts 3A, 3B, and 3C. And those are available on Rumble, not on YouTube. You can't find them on YouTube. They are on Rumble only, as well as my channel on Odyssey. So if you're interested, if you want to keep going with the Khazarian Mafia and see where I take it, you can watch 3 more movies. They're just as jam-packed with information as the first 2. So it's a 5-movie saga. And by the time you finish it, you will be much more aware about the world than you are now. You'll be better off, for sure. You'll know more about yourself and the world, and it will better prepare you for what we're experiencing. No question. Yeah.
Awesome. I don't have that link in the description, but I will remember to add it in so people can go directly to your Rumble.
All good, man.
What else we got here? Sweet says, thank you for those of us that don't understand but feel it and don't know how to express. Thank you, Josh. Weirdo. Pinky Parker says, thank you. Sorry. Okay, there was another big super chat that came in from Genius, and it's disappeared, and I can't see the message. but it was a $100 super chat, which is absolutely incredible. So thank you, genius. But your message has disappeared for some reason. But thank you very much for your support throughout the live stream. Akia Nova says, I'm a firm believer in fasting. The longest fast was 45 days. Just finished a 30-day fast. I've astral traveled. The experience is interesting. That last slide I've seen before. What do you make of that?
Fasting. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to turn on your immune system. That's pretty extensive, going 45 days. That's amazing. That's obviously a spiritual pursuit there that's going on. That's far beyond the typical fasting. Because I mean, you're going to pull a lot of weight off your body doing something like that. But I think periodic fasting is very healthy. Yeah, periodic fasting is very healthy. It turns on your immune system. It begins to break down fats that you don't want, to turn those into energy so that you'll burn them off. It really cleans, it helps clear out toxins, pathogens that have been building inside you. Gives your body time and energy to be able to take that shit that's stuck in your organs from all the filtering from the stuff that you're eating. So yeah, absolutely, I'm a big believer in fasting. And then if you're going to do it like you're talking about with this 45-day thing, you absolutely will gather or be able to gain a higher and higher spirituality going into that kind of extreme. It's through those extreme experiences that we gain the most knowledge about the world and about ourselves, because nature only hands it to those who are willing to endure it. And so you're going to have to be willing to put yourself out there if you really want to know the deeper insight, the deeper knowledge and truth of the world, because that kind of thing isn't just handed to you. You got to experience it. So that's what that guy's doing with that 45-day fast. That guy would definitely be able to get off the planet faster and definitely be able to access that spiritual sense faster, because he has transformed the entire metabolism of his body into a higher sense, a spiritual sense, because he's just not eating. So you're moving into a different realm there. And as long as he knows what he's doing, yeah, it works. It absolutely works. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Fascinating. Thank you, bro. Bleak says, what are your thoughts on dreams and where they come from?
Yeah, dreams are the subconscious motivations, the subconscious frustrations. But because dreams come from the subconscious, they're intermingled with your conscious mind. It uses conscious images so that when you see the dream, you could recognize the language that the subconscious is speaking to you. So the more versed you get in the images and the chemistry and the way and means of how your subconscious works, the more you will be able to clue into your dreams, because your dreams are coming from the same place where you found out who you loved, your favorite color, your favorite food. The dream space is coming from that same space where you're not directing it. It's just coming out of you. Like you didn't decide you liked blue best. You found that out. So when I go to sleep, I find out my dreams by going to sleep. And by cluing into these subconscious intuitions, notions that it's handing you, you can better navigate your conscious life, because you're clued into these subconscious motivations, which are past, which are in another realm than your conscious world. And so there's a greater knowledge, there's a greater viability, there's a greater spiritual essence available to you in that dream state, because it's not messing with the material stuff. It's coming in through images. It's coming in through the stuff that you can't fully grasp. So yes, absolutely, it's a good idea to learn about your dreams, to have dreams, and to learn from them. Try and figure out what they're telling you. Like sometimes you'll have a dream that'll inspire something in your life that will change your life. And that came straight out of your subconscious as a gift, and a person who is in tune with themselves and has a clear communication channel between their conscious and subconscious. I mean, those people are going to have some pretty amazing dreams, and they'll be able to know stuff that the average Joe won't be able to access, because you're accessing that deeper sense. Big believer in that stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's extremely interesting. Nine Toe says, thank you for this collaboration. My pleasure. And thank you to Chuck as well. Akia says, the last slide of the religions is what I saw. School of SA says, thank you for sharing your beautiful energy with us, Chuck. Welcome. And I think this will be the last one. Okay. Jared says, Jordan Maxwell described the Antichrist as the beast from the abyss, not a single entity, but a force. The archons and their minions serve this, ?
Yes. Yes. Get the idea of being out of your head when it comes to these large energy forces. Get the idea of form out of your mind. It's another dimension. It's like the person who asked the question, can God make a rock he can't lift? You're asking the wrong, you're intermixing dimensions in your question that confuse the question, as well as there's not an answer for that, because you're dumbing it down too much. You're taking this spiritual world and you're trying to dumb it down into words. And it's the same thing across these realms. Don't try and put these energies, these forces, these things into a set costume, because then that force is limited to that costume. You don't want to limit it to that costume, just like you are not your body. You are so much more than your body, your personality, your drives, your motivations, what you create, far beyond your body. And these spiritual manifestations are far beyond what you're seeing. So there's nothing wrong with, having names and notions and concepts, but don't lock into it like, okay, Baal is different than Moloch. These are totally separate gods, beings that live in different places and do. No, you're dumbing down this thing. These are just costumes for energies that have tremendous effect and influence in this material world that we live in. So don't limit them out. Just see them as part of the forces, in the same way that you have forces inside of you that attract you to things, that revulse you from things, and you don't control any of that. Like, you find that out as you go into these spaces. This is why it's so important to be sensitive and in tune and aware and conscious, because that's going to help you to better navigate your life and make better decisions, for sure. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. And what you just explained there actually is something that I've spoken about a lot on the channel, in that we kind of like confuse ourselves and create sort of so much division by trying to apply so many labels and sub-labels and subcategories to all these things, when I feel like, after all these subcategories, we're arguing like, no, it's X, no, it's Y. But if we kind of went up that chain to the root source, we realize that it's coming from the same thing. And I feel like almost everything in life can really just be determined as like a positive or negative, or whatever. It's just on a scale, and then we complicate it by trying to apply all these humanistic labels to it. But yeah, really, I agree, man. If we strip it back, it's all just kind of it's all the one thing. I want to thank you, man, for your time. Like, this has been so awesome. You've been super generous with your time. It's been a really fun week on the channel, learning, and I think people have been loving it too. So yeah, you're a wealth of knowledge. Your links are down below for people who want to go and check you out. And I just want to also personally thank you. You're a kind soul. You're a good person, and I really appreciate all the work that you do.
Thank you, Josh. And let me just please say to all of your audience, you're a good man. You got a good heart, Josh. You're a good man. You're doing good things. And I'm not just saying that because you covered my material. I've looked through some of your material. I've listened to some of your material. And I'm telling you, you're doing a good thing, Josh. And the world needs more people like you. So I'm so thankful that you're here and that you're helping to inspire others, because, man, you're really doing an incredible job of it. So thank you for being a part of this. And thank you for inviting me to be on your show. I'm happy to be here. And anytime you want to do this again, brother, just ask me back. I'm happy to show up anytime, for sure. Thank you.
Thanks, man. My pleasure, and the kind words mean a lot as well. And I'd definitely like to do this another time. So we'll pen that in for sure.
Yeah, man.
We'll wrap it up. But if I could get you just to hang around after this outro plays. All right. And everyone else, thank you for watching. Yeah, thank you for the support, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Take care.
Yeah.